I heard this story. People were going nuts. Everybody's all angry on Twitter. James Madison, what was he, the fourth president, I think? He's got this crystal flute. It's like a legendary crystal flute. It was in possession of the Library of Congress, who reached out to Lizzo. For those, she's a very famous musician, and she twerked on stage while playing it, thus fulfilling the prophecy, signaling the end of the American Empire. Yes. No, but a lot of people are making jokes about how, like, American history is now a joke, a spectacle, signifying that, like, you know, we've outlived our history, I guess. We've outlived I guess the word is traditions, or, you know, the historical value is just gone. It's become spectacle, and I just thought it was funny. I thought it was funny because, you know, I'm not trying to be mean to Lizzo or anything, but she's like this very large, morbidly obese woman playing this like legendary historical flute on stage, and it just kind of feels inappropriate for anyone, you know, and no disrespect to Lizzo, but like for anyone to like do that. But it is what it is. So we'll talk about that story because I guess everybody's laughing about it. But we got another story that's really depressing. CNN had this great headline, and it said Joe Biden calls out to deceased congresswoman at a conference, and it was sad because I mean, this woman lost her life a month ago. Joe Biden's asking where she is, and he paid tribute to her personally. So the dude's brain is just rotted to the core, or he didn't actually bother when she died. You know, pick one. Either way, it's just brutal. So we'll talk about that. Plus, there's a whole bunch of other stories, I guess. Before we get started, my friends, head over to timcast.com. Become a member to support our work. We're going to have a members-only uncensored show coming up tonight at 11 p.m. And you're also supporting our journalists. People like Christopher Bertman, who wrote the story about Lizzo twerking while playing James Madison's flute, and our other reporters who are working every day. We had a great video. I don't know if you saw it. Elad went on the ground to a Fetterman rally and asked people what they thought about John Fetterman chasing after an innocent black man with a shotgun because he thought he was shooting guns or something like that. And it's remarkable to see these people just say outright, like, they don't care that he did it. And he even asks one person, like, there's a racial reckoning happening. Don't you think something here may be bad? And they're like, well, I don't believe you anyway. So, and it just goes to show the state of politics in this country. But if you want to support that stuff, it is 100% membership supported. So if you like the field reporting, you like the written articles, become a member at timcast.com. And also, don't forget to smash that like button, subscribe to this channel, share the show with your friends. Joining us tonight to talk about all of this is Richie McGinniss.
How are we doing, folks?
Who are you?
I am Richie McGinniss. I am actually now no longer the video director at the Daily Caller. I am an independent gonzo journalist. Oh. You can look that up. I know it's not a phrase that's used often these days. That's Richie, Richie, McGinniss, 2 I's, 2 N's, 2 S's.
Oh, falsely defamed by, I think, the New York Times.
I think I'm just defamed generally at this point. But
and we were tweeting because you wrote an op-ed for Newsweek about Kyle Rittenhouse, and then Jack Posobiec criticized you for it. Jack is unfortunately not here to defend his positions, but he had obligations. But you know,
I respect Jack's position. I respect everybody's position. I think that's the point of an open discourse, and that's one of the reasons why, you know, I put my personal account out there as opposed to the account that came out in court, because I think that the emotional experience, and I know that that's a big trigger word right there, but that's different from the actual undeniable truth of what the law is. The way human experiences something is different from that.
So also, Ian is not with us tonight, unfortunately. There is he's just chilling, but he might pop in at some other point. But we do have, thanks to Hurricane Ian, Don't Walk Run Productions.
Hello, everybody.
Hanging out.
Thank you. I'm Andrew from Don't Walk Run Productions. You can find me on YouTube at just type in Don't Walk Run or Don't Walk Run at Twitter. I would like to thank our amazing host here, Tim Pohl, and the gang for letting me be a refugee. So thank you very much. And I just want to say hi to everybody in Florida, and just, you know, hope you guys are keeping safe.
We like to say legal asylum.
It was either here or Martha's Vineyard, and I think I probably had a better chance here. So I didn't want to be shipped to like a joint Air Force base up in Massachusetts. So I'm just staying in a hotel, waiting to get back.
You know, we take in refugees. You know, we want to do right, and so we got a hotel, I think. You know.
Yeah, just don't try and come here if you're
That's right.
Yeah, don't
without let him know ahead of time.
But if you show up, you'll get shot, probably.
We also have the milk merchant.
Yeah, I don't know how I feel about this guy staying around here, but that's a separate topic. Anyway, it's time for me to be professional. I wanted to apologize for my gags and goofs. It was a little distracting with my bazongas out talking about World War III. I think I milked that bit to the last drop.
Oh.
And plus, my shirts were being ruined. The wonderful, amazing shirts that you could get on thebestpoliticalshirts.com, like this one that says it's not the news, it's an establishment press release, which you could exclusively get on thebestpoliticalshirts.com. Because you do, I'm here. Thanks so much for having me.
I just want to add too, quite often it's not the news. Quite literally, someone will send a press release to a news outlet and they'll just reword it and then publish it.
Yeah, all the time. And it's just literally PR for the richest people in the world.
You know.
And you can get those shirts in long sleeve and short sleeve. Just remember that.
Thank you.
Okay,
It's
it's cold in the studio.
Yeah, Tim did turn down the temperature just to get those
That's true.
the
He
nips
did.
popping.
Totally
Yeah, well,
did.
of course,
Yep.
of course. You know, got to make the big bucks. We know it makes money.
It's true, we do. And I think that tonight would have been the perfect opportunity to say that Ian is busy because he's down in Florida. Obviously that's not the case. I've heard that 21 Waffle Houses are closed right now. Thoughts and prayers to Florida. That's a very bad sign. Very excited to hear what we have to talk about tonight. Let's get going, if Tim can see.
So the first story we have here from Timcast.com, Lizzo twerks while playing James Madison's flute at DC concert. And that's it. One of the earliest presidents had a crystal flute from 1813, and the Library of Congress brought that on stage to this woman so that she could toot her flute and twerk. And something about this, just it's a circus, it's a spectacle. It is, I don't know what the right word is for it, but it seems unserious. Like we've become a very unserious people as
A
the United
waste of
States.
taxpayer dollars.
Yeah.
Well,
That's-
yeah. But what I mean is, we used to be like, we're going to the moon, people, not because we want to, but because we have to or whatever. I don't know what the quote was. But it was like, you look back on history and we see these very serious things. Everything was a large matter of consequence. You've got wars, you've got civil rights, you've got all of this huge historical stuff happening. And I look back on that and I'm like, either the country is completely fallen apart because we have no serious culture, we're permanently children, good times make weak men, or it never existed in the first place and we just romanticize the past.
So you're telling me James Madison wasn't twerking and playing his flute at the same time?
That's what he would do. Yeah, he would go up on stage and he would, twerk. That was very big in the late 1700s.
Yeah, I thought what she did was very bold and brave. Very bold. And the cloth stuck up her tuchus was definitely an added artistic expression that I think we have to fully support because it's again something that is nice now. So I fully support it.
Here's Lizzo tweeting, "Nobody has ever heard this famous crystal flute before. Now you have. I'm the first and only person to ever play this presidential 200-year-old crystal flute. Thank you, Library of Congress." I can appreciate this. She's very happy to be, playing this. But there's something about it that to me, it's just kind of like, I don't think disrespectful is the right word, but is desecration.
Yeah.
Desecration
I'd say
of
This is a
historical
really important
artifacts.
piece of history. It's a really neat piece of history. It's beautiful. And she just, what?
No, she upped the value. Now, Lizzo played James Madison's flute. Like,
Her buttocks flailing up and down, making the clap noise, adds value to this historical thing. And now, when we think of James Madison's flute, we think of the wonderful booty of Miss Lizzo, which I think only makes it that much better.
This reminds me of like Idiocracy and Wall-E.
Yeah.
Like the look of shock and excitement on her face. I think
That comment was perfect right there.
I just kind of feel like we're on the verge of World War III, and Vladimir Putin's sitting back in his chair and he's watching this and he's like, yeah, it's all over. You know what I mean?
You don't understand the major accomplishment that this was.
Yes, thank you. And just finally, someone sees it like I do.
Yeah.
This is Americana personified right in our reality. I mean, what else do you need to see to understand that this is America at its best right now?
I think.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, I think the Chinese engineers of TikTok are the ones who are sitting back laughing because, if you're asking yourself, what does our culture pay attention to? Well, that's what TikTok culture will get you right there.
Oh man, and these TikTok videos, they pop up on Instagram too, and I look at them and I'm like, okay, people are being programmed with this stuff. Like, have you seen these videos? There's like a lot of memes and they play songs and they all do the exact same thing, and it's like, is degenerate the right word? You know, depraved.
Yeah.
It's working on people's
Lascivious.
basic impulses. And when you look at Chinese TikTok and their algorithm and you compare it to the American TikTok and what is shown to our children here, that it's captivating so much of their attention span that YouTube is trying to copy every thing that TikTok is right now. You see a huge difference with what is represented to the children of China that are limited on the platform only to, I believe, an hour or 2 hours per day. They're shown educational content. They're shown content that informs them about things that about their culture, about their society, about things that they could be doing, art, math, science, all of that is prioritized. Here, twerking, sexuality, degeneracy, idiocy, hurting people, making fun
Obesity.
of people, and normalizing obesity, normalizing castration, normalizing some of the most craziest ideas, which some people would hint at is a form of fifth generational warfare, with people being brainwashed and doing things that essentially hurt them, their families, their communities, and eventually the country. And I think this needs to be understood when it comes to seeing the algorithm and its larger impacts on society.
Do you guys ever take the moral foundations test? You know that one? It's based on Jonathan Haidt's research. There's 6 moral foundations. You guys know, you don't know that one?
I've taken it.
Liberals have only 2. Conservatives have all 6, and libertarians only have 1.
Of course.
Libertarians, it's liberty. Everything else is it's just liberty. So like,
Well, Lizzo's free to do this.
they ask questions to find out where your moral foundations are. I usually get it says like left liberal, but I have a decent balance across the board. But I have really high liberty, and then I have really high like fairness. Liberals only have care and fairness as their moral foundations. They have no loyalty, like sanctity, purity, or whatever the other ones are. And then they have very low liberty on average. And then libertarians, they just don't care about anything but liberty. So the questions they ask you, it'll be like, there's a scale where it's like, how okay are you with this scenario? And one of them is, Janet is cleaning her attic when she comes across an old war memorial flag from her grandfather's time in his service, and she picks it up and uses it as a washcloth to scrub the floors. Are you okay with this? Liberals tend to say, yeah, who cares? Libertarians tend to say, yeah, who cares? Conservatives tend to say, this is not okay. So in that regard, I actually say, yeah, absolutely not okay. I think for me, it's like, it's important to recognize the past so that we can learn from it, understand it, and improve moving forward. But when I see something like this, I don't feel like rage or disgust. I kind of feel like, yeah, we're going downhill, because there's a certain amount of respect you would have for objects and artifacts and things that represent the successes and the failures of humanity, and for this spectacle of this big, you know, what's the right word?
Bodacious.
Bodacious.
Yeah.
Sure, Luke. But look. I'm not trying to be mean to Lizzo, because, you know, I got that libertarian spike. But what I see here is American history being mocked essentially by a morbidly obese woman on stage as a spectacle, as a gag, as a joke, totally disrespecting what it is, what it represents, what it's supposed to be. And as Luke was saying, it's the normalization, all of these really negative traits that we're supposed to be okay with. I look at this and I feel like it's Idiocracy. I feel like it's WALL-E. You know, in WALL-E, everybody's morbidly obese. They have no bone density anymore. That's not the kind of place we want to go. We don't want to go into some future where everyone's like He-Man, ripped, and like it's Sparta or anything like that. But at the very least, we can be like, hey, you know, we're going to respect the relics of our past so we can understand it. This, to me, is just like taking a dump on the American flag, you know?
Do you think that people would have said the same thing in the late 1960s? Like, you know, conservatives at the time would have said, America's going down the toilet. This is it. It's over. Like, because America does, to a certain extent, oscillate between conservative and
no, for sure.
culture, right?
And I've thought about that, so I decided, you know what? This could just be our generation's conflict. So I asked a bunch of older people who were around back then, and you know what they said? Certainly not.
We're screwed.
Yeah, they said it's never been this bad.
So maybe we're just oscillating downwards.
Yeah.
I think we are. I went to an antique shop. It's amazing. I got a photo. I got books. It's the Photographic History of the Civil War. It's this collection. It's from 1913, I think. It's very expensive. And it's amazing. You open it up and there's pictures from like Civil War battlefields and stuff. And I asked this guy who's in his 60s, have you ever seen it this bad? And he says, no, absolutely not. Now, granted, in the 60s, he was, that's around the time he was born. He was a small child. But I've asked a bunch of older people too, because people we've had on the show, we've had a lot of people on the show who are like in their 70s and older, and they all say the same thing. It has never been this bad. So I have to wonder, Well,
here's maybe just one question here. Do you also think that the power of information and technology and the way in which ideas can basically go between groups of people, go between countries in a way that they never could before, like at a certain point, the top is going to blow off and people will awaken to the fact that they've been, controlled in these paradigms like what we're looking at right there, and everybody's celebrating, stuff like that.
You know what I wonder is there seems to be independent thinkers and dependent thinkers. And I wonder what the catalyst for that is. Why is it that some people want to live in the matrix and some people don't? Is this something inherent to an individual down to their core, their soul, or is it a learned behavior, something that can be snapped out of? I certainly think humans are amorphous to the point where anyone can be red-pilled, anyone can be woke. It doesn't matter where you're from. But I wonder if there's a tendency due to something, inherent. I'm not saying I know for sure. I'm wondering, I guess.
I think that battle has happened since America was incepted. It's between the Puritans who settled, in the Mass Bay colonies, wrote the first laws in the United States. Like one of the first laws written in the United States was you can't beat your wife with a stick any thicker than your thumb.
I don't think that's true.
Yes, it is. Well, let's look it up.
I think that's apocryphal.
No, it's literally that there were like 12 laws that were written in the Mass Bay colonies, and that's one of them. Let's check it out. Anyways, then there were the hillbillies who also came and they conquered the frontier. And they're like, I'm not going to listen to your laws. I'm not going to listen to that. I think to a certain extent, America is unique in that we have those two cultures kind of battling it out.
Let's see. English jurist Sir William Blackstone wrote in the Commentaries of the Laws of England, an old law that wants moderate beatings by husbands, but he did not mention thumbs. Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's apocryphal. Where did you say that was from?
I'm gonna do my own independent research. Mass Bay.
Yeah, I think it's folk etymology.
I'm gonna crack a beer if I'm wrong this early in the podcast.
But they're talking about so when you search for this, you get rule of thumb, and they say that the rule of thumb is not a real thing.
I'm talking about beating your wife with a stick thicker than your thumb.
But that's where where that comes from. So, that's what people are saying. It's based on, that the rule of thumb is about beating your wife when it's actually.
So there was a court ruling in 1824 that asserted this. Wait, a ruling in Mississippi stated the man was entitled to enforce domestic discipline by striking his wife with a whip or stick no wider than the judge's thumb. In a later case in 1868, the defendant was found to have struck his wife with a switch about the size of his fingers. The judge found the man not guilty due to the switch being smaller than a thumb. So I don't know, man. You don't beat your wife. It's not cool.
No.
Yeah. Well, clearly.
That was aside from the point of the story. But.
Yeah.
Well, I don't think this is my. I think this is my take on the whole Lizzo situation. I don't think it's that deep. I don't. First of all, did anybody in this room know the existence of that flute before today?
No.
Nope.
No, and it's very cool.
What? Okay. James Madison apparently never played it, so it was probably just given to him. Like somebody made it.
That makes it worse.
We don't know the historical significance of this flute other than James Madison probably got it during his presidency. Lizzo absolutely did not know about that flute. She had a concert there. Somebody in the National Archives is probably like, I really like Lizzo.
They tweeted at her.
And we have this stupid flute that nobody's played, and it's like.
Let me ask you something.
It's like Pixar. It's like Pixar. Okay, John Lasseter used to have like a in his office. He used to have all the Pixar toys, and then little kids would want to touch him, and he's like, no, don't touch him. And he's like, oh, wait a minute. They're toys. Kids should be allowed to play them. And the National Archives is probably the same thing. Like that flute needs to be played.
Right. So that makes it worse, right? if you had an original sealed Han Solo action figure, mint condition, and then someone was like, let's tear it open and play with it, you'd destroy the value of it. The fact that it's preserved is what makes it valuable.
But if you're George Lucas, who cares? Like you're just like, sure, kid, go play with it.
Right. This is the property of the American public that was never played before. Was a historical artifact, was handed off to some entertainer to play on stage, and that's why I said desecration. It's no longer this pristine crystal flute that was ornamental. It is now a gag prop for a stage show.
Well, it's not like she pooped on an American flag. I mean, she just like played a flute for 5 seconds. I mean, I wouldn't necessarily call it desecration. I would say the whole situation is like ludicrous.
I'm not trying to say that it's like akin to like pissing on a grave or anything, but like it has fundamentally altered what that object was. And I just think what we see consistently is this idea that these people, typically on the left, care absolutely nothing for this country. They call it historically racist. They crap all over it. And it's all hypocrisy. They're more than happy to say defund the police, but then call the police on people they don't like. They're more than happy to all laugh and cheer and scream 1619 Project, but then be like, woo, we get to play with this historical artifact. It's just, what I see is, you can certainly look to the past in your country and say, hey, there were bad things and we want to do away with those. But I think you absolutely have to respect the beginnings of where you come from and the history of your country. I think, look, what it comes down to is the reverence for this country is just flushed down the toilet. And this may just be a grain of sand in the heap, but this is like a big show where they pulled from the archives from the Library of Congress and brought it on stage to make some spectacle out of. I'm not saying it's the apocalypse,
but it's not very significant either. The actual flute, like, we don't know what it's about, like who gave it to him, like why was it given to him, why was it made.
I don't think that's relevant.
It's
like I've got a coin. I've got a coin from Athens, that I got at a shop. I don't know who spent it. I don't know why it was for, minted. No idea. All I know is that it exists. It's evidence of the civilization that existed. It's a reminder of these things. I was also I got this for Seamus. It was a coin used by Saint Casper. Oh, yeah. That they allege it was one of the same coins that were minted around the same time that was given to Saint Casper. Was one of the wise men. It may have been used by him. We don't know for sure, but this was these were the ones minted in this area where they believe he came from. And that's a representation of something valuable. Using it as currency is meaningless, but to take these items and treat them like just spectacles and toys or gag shows, I think is look, no one desecration, I think, is like a signal of the apocalypse. That's the gag I put in the title of this video. I just think that this is just another sign of the decay of the core and the soul of this country.
What do you people think? Vote number 1 if you vote for the decay. Vote number 2 if this is a silly accident. Let me know down in the chat room right now.
I'll give you this, Andrew. From CNN, Biden asks if deceased congresswoman is present at White House Food Insecurity Conference. Does this do it for you? Is this more apocalyptic? The president, who a month ago paid tribute to a congressman who died, seemingly forgetting he did that a month later, calls out to her and says, is she here? Where is she? I guess she's not here.
I guess not, huh?
Just a week and a half ago, he was on 60 Minutes and they asked him if he was mentally and physically fit to serve office. And he's like, I'm focused. I'm focused. And then 2 weeks later, he's like, oh, where's the dead congresswoman? Yeah, I mean, oh my God, like, come on, he's undermining his own argument. Oh yeah, I'm in good shape. I'm 80. It's ridiculous.
Isn't he? He may almost.
This is total clown world.
He may be the only person who doesn't realize. I mean, that's how brain decay works.
Yeah.
You're not aware. You don't have any nerve endings in your brain. Yeah. You don't feel any pain from it. So I don't think we should be asking him if he has brain decay. That's not how it usually. You don't ask a person with dementia if they have dementia.
But everybody else around him is like his yes man.
That's correct.
He has 2 metal stints inside of his head, holding back major aneurysms. So he is not in good health. But he has his finger on the button to literally blow up the world 20 times over. He could do it any moment, anytime, according to the official story of how the government actually runs and how the president is in charge and the commander-in-chief, which I question. And I think his decline perfectly shows what I think is what is happening behind the scenes of just the front guy that they're pushing forward to blame for the acceleration of the Great Reset. Let's put him up forward. Let's blame everything on this cognitive decline. Meanwhile, the richest, most sinister people behind the scenes are grabbing up everything for themselves and pushing the most absurd policies that no president would ever want to be known for. So,
but I want to give a shout out to CNN because this headline is amazing. Biden asks if deceased congresswoman is present at White House Food Insecurity Conference. They could have spun that a million ways.
Well, they did, actually.
CNN did?
Yeah, they did. There was actually, let me find it. It was another article too. Give me 1 second.
I like how they framed it. When Karine Jean-Pierre was asked, she was like, "Well, clearly, to Joe, she was top of mind. She was of top of mind." And I'm like, what is she saying? What does that mean? Joe Biden called out to a woman who is no longer living, and then asked if she was here, and then said, "I guess she's not." It's like, bro, do you remember that you paid tribute to her? Like, you wrote a letter. I guess he didn't write the letter, or he forgot.
Don't you think that going back to what we were saying earlier, is there a certain breaking point at which people wake up? Don't you think any sentient human being who saw that would be like, "Yo, that's BS"? Like,
I mean,
it's
the total
spokesperson of the White House is literally lying in front of me.
Oh, but it's been happening. Look, come on, RussiaGate. If you still believe this stuff, just I'm that's why I'm saying.
It's a good point.
There's a we talked about this a bunch of times in the past when we get into our weird and wild shenanigans shows. But I was like, there's some religious theory, or a theory isn't the right word. This idea that there's a finite number of souls, and that some people are born without a soul because, let's say, there's only 1 billion souls available. So when more people are being born, there's people who don't have any souls because there's not enough of them. I'm not saying I believe that, but that's a conversation we had. The argument then becomes, if only that means 1 in 7 people are just mindlessly drifting about without any sentient function. You know what I mean? Like, dude, at what point do we say someone is cognitively deficient if they believe this stuff? You know what I mean?
That's a good question.
Did you find the article?
It's a question of what reality is and how it's being fabricated.
Yeah, the article is Joe Biden's latest gaffe plays right into Republicans' hands.
Yeah. Republicans pounce.
Yes.
All right. Well, was that an opinion piece though?
It's under CNN Politics, so I mean, it's analysis,
so is this one.
I guess.
But this one's like their actual news article, and they just outright say it. He asks if deceased congressman is present. Like, I feel like that's a very harsh framing. To be honest,
it's hard to ignore it though. It's hard for a news organization to actually spin that and go like NPR. Somebody pointed out that NPR did a piece on the event that he did and didn't mention the gaffe at all.
How much do you want to bet he really thinks Kamala's the president? you know how he's like called her president several times?
Yeah.
Yes.
Like he was in the basement the whole time the campaign was going on. For all we know, they came downstairs and said, "Congratulations, Joe, you're VP again." He was like, "Oh great, who's president?" Kamala's like, "Oh, well, all right."
He's called Doug Emhoff the first lady too. So I'm not kidding. I'm not even making a joke. It's a true story.
I kind of feel like, at what point do we just sit back, light up a cigar, and ride the gravity bomb down?
I thought that's what we're doing.
Yeah. Since January 20th.
I will say though, having my dad suffer from degenerative brain disease over the course of a number of years, it's interesting because kind of your core nature comes out and like all the core habits, like needed a cup of coffee, like you stick to the things that you really know that you can rely on every day, your routines. But for him, it was like the opposite. It was like he was so unwilling to give up his independence that any time that you tried to help him with anything, he'd be smacking you away. I think Joe Biden was just complicit in this stupid game from the beginning. And so now it's just like, it's just happening easier. He just kind of cruises.
Yeah, people were saying on Twitter that was it sundowning? But
Yes.
it's getting worse. If it's to the point where, like, it was a month ago that he sent out a letter being like, tribute to Walorski's family. I think that's her last name, right? Walorski. And he doesn't even remember that. It's just like, come on, dude. It's worse. It gets worse. They actually had a tribute to her at the event.
Yeah.
So here he's coming out to speak at this event that was actually going to do a memorial tribute to her, and he asks if she's in the audience. Like, this might not be dementia. This might be something substantially worse than that. Like, it's one thing that your brain stops working, you're forgetting things, and you're confused. It's another thing when you're like putting concepts together that shouldn't exist. Like, we're paying tribute to this woman who died. Is she here, sitting in the audience somewhere? Like, okay.
Yeah, there's no way he's in charge. He had major brain surgery a number of times. Being the president of the United States is an extremely exhausting, stressful job that many presidents age severely during their time in office. You look at the presidents. Maybe people make arguments against Donald Trump, but you look at Obama, you look at Clinton, you look at Bush. They look like totally different human beings before they came into office and after they came into office, as years off of their life have been taken away. There is no way he is slaving away. There's no way he's at that desk making the decisions. He's not in charge. He's not calling the shots. The bigger question that people need to be asking themselves is, when he's not there, he's checked out. He can't even make coherent sentences. Who's really in charge? That's the question that a lot of people should be asking themselves.
Can we give a round of applause to The Onion for this article?
Onion did it with this.
I love to bring this article up.
It's great.
Stress of presidency already ages Biden 10 years, and it shows a living corpse.
So who's in charge? If it's not Biden, who's in charge? Who's calling the shots here? Who's at the desk right now with that button that could blow the world over 20 times over?
It's Ron Klain.
Ugh.
It's Jake Sullivan.
Barry O.
It's definitely not Kamala.
Victoria Nuland, BlackRock, and all these other Goldman Sachs and all these other multinational corporations that are obviously benefiting greatly from the policies that he's not even putting into place, but he's signing on to and saying, yes, I'm for it, when in reality, I don't think he's there.
Well, getting back to the actual gaffe, people don't understand, because the White House is spinning it in a way that they're like, oh, well, she was on his mind, at top of mind, and that's why he said it. But
of top of mind.
Of top of mind.
Of top of mind.
He was of top of mind, I think.
Well, I don't know what that means.
Like that, I don't know.
Well, I get what you're trying to say, but like, where did that phrase come from? Is it something people say?
Steve Portnoy from CBS News, I think he's CBS News, CBS News Radio. He said, look, we just want to understand what happened here. Like, can we see will you release the prepared remarks? Because it's possible that, to be completely objective here, it's very possible that in the teleprompter it said, I want to say thanks to these people that helped push the bill through, and they didn't put the late congressman or the late congresswoman or whatever, and like actually just spelling it out for Biden, and he just kind of, just pulled a Joe Biden. But the answer was, why do you need to see the prepared remarks? We put the delivered remarks up on our website. So it's very possible that somebody made a mistake in the teleprompter, but ultimately, Joe Biden made a mistake.
He's Ron Burgundy. He just reads whatever's on the prompter.
But you really need, that's why he had the card. Remember the card that he had where it said, walk it through the door, sit down.
You do this. You do this.
The reporter, did you see the one with the reporter's pictures and names and news organization and question and answers that they were supposed to be given and having the interaction with? All of that. Just
they do
so
that. They give him cards with little thumbnails of the people that he's going to be interacting with.
In huge print with big photos. Very simply laid out there.
We sometimes do promos for emergency food here on this show and on my other show. And right now we got this big hurricane barreling down on Florida, and it's crazy. The water on the northern part of the hurricane, all the water was pushed out. So like the water drains because the wind is pushing the water. And then on the south end of the hurricane, it's actually an 18-foot storm surge just flooding Fort Myers. It's brutal. And stories like that, when they come up, I'm like, guys, you really need to consider this emergency food. Yeah. Because people are going to get trapped in their homes for up to 10 days with no electricity. And so have you thought about what your emergency supplies are? Do you have canned food? Do you have supplies? Do you have water you're going to be able to drink? So especially if it floods, like, what are you going to do? Where are you going to go? Now that story, it's obvious to most people, like, why you would need emergency food. But I got to tell you, this story, I think, is a bigger example.
There's a hurricane and our president doesn't know what's going on.
No, I mean, like,
bad company.
If the perfect storm, so to speak.
If a commercial came on and they were like, a storm, a hurricane, could strike at any moment. Right now, there's a hurricane. Buy emergency food. I'd be like, yeah, I get it, whatever. You show me this, and you're like, the president can't remember that he paid tribute to a congresswoman who died. I'd be like, oh boy.
As we're severely escalating tensions with Russia and trying to, of course, make sure that the conflict in Ukraine is prolonged, it's absolutely bonkers to be in this current situation, not just because of the natural disasters, but the human disasters that are happening in places like Philadelphia, places all throughout the United States where havoc, criminality, and lawlessness is just the new norm, which is again just perplexing to see such a destruction and such a chaos within our society. And I think a lot of it is deliberate.
And speaking of the hurricane, that story, the hurricane, is actually drowning out. It's covering up this story. Like this is being pushed back.
I'm just, in all seriousness, when the president has displayed this. Okay, first of all, we just had a couple days ago where he gets lost on stage and he's doing the Mr. Burn hands, where he's like walking around confused. And then I was covering that. And so I looked up the Cornholio fists. Remember during the town hall, he's standing there with his fists clenched like Beavis, and with no explanation, everyone's like, what's he doing? Like something's wrong with this dude. Yo, Vladimir Putin is now accusing the U.S. I believe Putin formally, I could be wrong, but I believe the U.S. is now being accused of sabotaging the Nord pipeline. Tucker Carlson came out with a great segment last night, way more in depth than the one I put out, pointing out that not only did this leak occur with 2 explosions detected on the Nord Stream pipeline, but the Baltic pipe was just announced the same day, coming from
Norway to Poland.
Right. Yep. And a very, very close to where the Nord Stream line goes in. And then all of a sudden, right. Yep. So it's like a similar
clearly sabotage of some shape or form.
Greatly benefiting the West. And our president, commander-in-chief, this is the brain he has. I gotta say, I think, it's like a chicken with his head cut off. That's it.
Well, I think the most concerning thing about this right here is that there is a convenient truth there of like why he messed it up. And even in an instance where there is like a convenient answer, like, look, yeah, it was in the teleprompter and he kind of misinterpreted it, they still choose to go with the outlandish lie. So it's like, even when there's something there, you just, nope, we don't need that.
There were 5 reporters that got to ask her that question, and she had the same exact answer every single time. And there was one, I don't know who it is. I'm going to try and find out, but there was a female journalist in the room that actually started. She raised her voice and said, "This happens. He's confused frequently. What is happening here?" And she basically just ignored her and said, you're being rude. You need to keep your voice down. But she has a great point. These journalists need to actually do their job and say, what exactly is going on? We need to see his full medical record. We haven't seen him take a cognitive test. It's all ridiculous. It's such a double standard. When Trump walks down a ramp slowly, they go, oh yeah. They bring in Sanjay Gupta and go, hey doctor, what do you think could be wrong with him? Do you think there's something wrong mentally and physically? When Joe Biden falls upstairs 3 times, they go, oh, it was the wind. When he falls off a standing bicycle, they're like, oh, it's a stutter. He has a stutter, So the double standard is very real. But I think
he said shoot it on a shove of pressure, and they called it a stutter.
But I think these journalists are starting to wake up, and they're starting to get really annoyed with Karine Jean-Pierre, who will not answer a question properly. She
may as well just say, like,
she's tragically untalented. Here's unreal.
Here's what she should do at this point. All right, let's play again.
She should quit.
So ask me a basic question, and I'll answer it.
So what is happening with the response to
Hurricane
the Kuwait situation?
To
the Kuwait situation.
Kuwait situation. Well, that's a great question. The other day, I was out in New York with a friend of mine, and we went to this really great place called Lafayette in New York. It's on Lafayette, and they have beef tartare. It's amazing. It's actually some of the best. So, next question.
So basically, what you're saying, her response should just be "fuck you." Next question.
Misdirection.
Sorry, my bad.
The family-friendly show here.
You did it.
No, I just mean, like, if she's not going to answer the question, just tell something interesting. Like. She could be like, oh, yes, that's an excellent question. Did you guys see the latest House of Dragons? I don't understand what was going on because, like, I turned it on and it's the future now. Did you watch this?
Yeah, they changed the actors.
But it's the future now.
Yeah.
And, like, Rhaenyra has a bunch of kids. I just got confused as to what I was watching and turned it off. That's a better answer than anything she could have said. I'd be like, oh, that's
less insulting.
Is that what happened on House of Dragons?
Top of mind.
Top of mind. I would rather someone be like, Karine, the president called out to a deceased member of Congress. Can you explain what's going on? I'd be like, yeah, actually, I've been watching Better Call Saul, And I don't know if you guys saw the episode, the last one where the German guy gets executed. Man, what a great show. What a great show. You know, it was really crazy to see Mike kind of like becoming this character where he doesn't want to kill the person, but, you know, eventually becomes this cold-blooded killer in Breaking Bad. Next question.
I kind of disagree with you, Andrew. I think she's doing a great job because as a White House spokesperson, she's supposed to represent the administration. And what better way to do that than to be confused when she's answering questions from journalists and not answering any questions and not having any kind of intellect when it comes to answering questions.
She's trying to mirror Joe Biden.
She's doing it in a very good way.
Okay.
And she does represent the administration perfectly.
What if, you're mentioning how like the journalists are just like getting fed up with being lied to? What if eventually she just snaps because like she's desperately trying to spin the unspinnable, and so just comes out and she goes, "I'll be honest with you, I think that dude's his brain is just gone. I don't even know what to say anymore. Look, I've been trying really, really hard to spin these answers for you guys, but clearly we're at a point where everybody knows Joe Biden can't think straight."
Yeah, the guy
Next
had 2
question.
brain aneurysms in 1988. He's not doing too well. What do you think he's going to be doing?
What if she said that'd be amazing?
Yeah, I would love that.
What do you think? His brain doesn't work. Next question.
But I don't know if these journalists are being lied to. I just think that she's just not answering a question, or when the other day, you one of the dumbest things I've ever heard in my life from anybody in any administration. Peter Ducey asked her. They were talking about the border, and she was like, they don't walk over the border. They don't walk across the border. And he's like, no, that's exactly what happens. That's exactly like, what world do you live in?
I've been there. I can confirm that. That's exactly what.
Dude, it's amazing because she says nothing. Like the answers she gives aren't like when asked about the deceased member of Congress, she goes, well, and she looks down and she goes, Joe Biden was honoring these people, and she was of top of mind.
Honoring.
Do you remember Jay Carney though?
That's what she said. She was of top
That was
of
Jay
mind.
Carney. Jay Carney for Obama did the same thing, except he talked even slower.
Look, what I loved about Kayleigh McEnany was that she had the book, and she'd be like, "You're lying, journalist." But now it's like what's happening is journalists are actually asking. It's like Peter Ducey. I don't know if he like was a wake up call to these people, but now they're asking real questions that you can't spin it anymore. It's just unspinnable.
I mean, the binder. You're right, Richie. The binder has always been there, but it's just so blatant that she doesn't have a thought on her own, a thought of her own. She just has to go to the binder 99% of the time.
I imagine that like when they were deciding who's going to replace Jen Psaki, you know, they had the candidates and they were like, this Karine, she can string words together for a long time.
I know.
Yeah, they don't mean anything, but
She's really good at those word salads.
They shouldn't.
it's all word salad. It's crazy.
She should not. She's there. We know why she's there.
You know,
John Kirby should be there. John Kirby he's articulate. He actually knows what he's talking about. He should be there. But they went with Karine Jean-Pierre so she could be like the first this and the first that and check off a bunch of boxes.
I wonder if, you know, behind the scenes, the White House, they're watching the press briefings and they're just laughing at the journalists. They were like, they still show up? Like, at what point do you just stop showing up? She's not going to answer your question. She's not even, like, that's why I was making the joke about if she just started talking about Breaking Bad or something, at least you'd have some coherent thought. Like, she would be telling you a thing. You'd be like, okay, well, it's unrelated, but at least it's something. No, what is of top of mind? She was clearly of top of mind. Are you saying that, like, he was thinking about her or something and that's why he misspoke? What does that mean? What is that phrase? But she just kept repeating it. And then my favorite is when they're like, okay, I'm going to ask you again because you didn't answer the question. She goes, I already explained it to you. She was of top of mind.
And then she read it again from the binder. and then there was a journalist who said, well, look, you know, I think about John Lennon every day. He's on top of mind, and I don't expect him to show up.
Wait, a journalist said that?
Yeah, a journalist said that. Yeah, like I'm paraphrasing, but he said, and she's like, well, when John Lennon becomes the president, then you know we can talk about it then.
What?
You know,
When
like, she
John
was just
Lennon
being,
becomes the president?
Yeah, like she's just an idiot.
That's like a Jen Psaki, like you condescend the question without answering it.
Oh, she was so smug.
That's
But
Psaki.
at least she could spin.
At least she was competent enough to be
Good at
smug.
that.
She was the State Department spokesman under Obama.
I didn't think she was that.
She wasn't really good then either, but
No, but I think she was for the spin that she spun spin. You know what I mean? Like Karine Jean-Pierre is just garbled word salad. It'd be like, here, let's try it again. Ask me a question.
You mentioned Jay Carney before. There was a hullabaloo with Joe Biden when there was like I think it was like the bird flu, and he was like, "Well, I wouldn't want to get on a plane because if somebody coughs and like the whole plane's gonna get bird flu." And then the press actually, it was actually Jake Tapper, I believe, who was like pushing Jay Carney. It's like, that's not true, right? Like, and then they're like, well, what the vice president meant to say, and they're like,
exactly.
no, what he meant to say is not what he said. Like they were trying to spin a thing that Joe Biden actually believed. He got a thing wrong, and they were like, no, what he meant to say. It's like, no, it's what he said. He was wrong, and he can't admit it.
Ask him a question.
So what was Joe Biden referring to when he was trying to call out an audience member who died a month ago?
Volkswagen, oatmeal spoon, Ferrari, cumulonimbus,
that's true.
rhododendron.
Yeah,
The nimbus is correct. Yeah,
Methylprednisolone.
Oh my, yes.
that was a big one.
Bismuth,
points.
how do you say that?
Salaciousness.
No. Bismuth salicylic. I don't know the word.
Salicylic
You get what I mean though. Pepto-Bismol.
Yeah.
Yes.
Choriqueso. Yeah, choriqueso. Guacamole.
Languages, yeah. Wow.
And
I'm
Graphene.
Buongiorno. Like she may as well just be saying random words, and the journalists keep asking. It's like they're sticking their hand in a fire, thinking something different is going to happen every time.
It's like the way you say it, not how you say it. It's like if someone says, "I went down to Peru," and you're
Peru?
like, "They're smart. They know, they know how to pronounce Peru."
You know what's crazy though? They really tried to do a hit job on all the Republican press secretaries. Like there was reliable sources. They put out a story where they said Sarah Huckabee Sanders says you don't get a lot of answers from her, not a lot of answers, and it's her saying, it was like a montage of her saying I don't know, which didn't mean that she didn't know the answer to the question. She was saying things like, I don't know why Democrats would want this thing. And they made, because of course they're dishonest, and they put together this montage. But with Jen Psaki, you could do that, or Jay Carney, you could do the same thing, but actually he didn't have a lot of answers, and neither did Jen Psaki. And I need to remember this. I'll circle back to how many circle backs there were at the beginning.
But that's why, I mean, the whole daily briefing is an act in the first place. Like President Clinton started the White House briefings, and it was basically like the 24-hour news cycles came out. They needed stuff coming out of the White House, consistently content, and it became like, I started working at NBC in end of 2012, and I decided to leave the cable news game because I was like, this is such BS, because it's you pay your dues, you ask the right questions, and if you ask the right questions, you play the game for long enough, then you'll be one of those frontmen, right? So you just have to play the game in cohorts with the White House. And so it's like this relationship between the fourth estate and the government that is the exact opposite of the purpose of the press, which is like to ask the tough questions.
I think they should just get rid of it. It's TV time for these reporters. That's all it is, because they have a press office.
Yeah, they should do a TikTok briefing instead.
There is such thing as email. They can just go and say, here's my question, please answer it in an email. But instead, that's
why I don't watch this stuff. I've never watched.
I watch it every single day because for content.
You may as well just sit in your bathroom and flush the toilet every few seconds. That's what you're watching.
That's what I watch.
Yeah,
but it depends. Like with Kayleigh McEnany, she actually answered questions.
Well, hold on, but she was calling out the corporate press. That was awesome.
She didn't have to do that, but she did, and she did it very well. She was amazing, and Sanders was great too. They were very, very amazing press secretaries. Sean Spicer, on the other hand, total garbage. He set the tone.
I pitched him on a motorized podium after Jenny McCarthy. What's her name?
Motorized podium.
Remember Saturday Night Live did that spoof, and they had, who was what was her name?
Yeah, it was Melissa McCarthy.
Melissa McCarthy.
Yeah.
She was on a motorized podium. It was super slow, and I was like, I saw Sean Spicer. I was like, hey man, I want to give you a motorized podium that's so fast. I have a skateboard that goes 25, and we'll put flames on it, and we'll rip that podium around DC, and it'll go viral.
How awesome!
And he didn't like my idea at all.
How awesome would it be if Dave Smith actually wins the presidency, and then Michael Malice becomes the press secretary?
It'd
just be It'd be so amazing. He'd just be like,
destroy them.
For one, he'd be ragging on the corporate press, which would be hilarious. But then he'd probably just say things exactly as they are.
I think it would just be an empty room after like 2 weeks. Just no one would go anymore.
Why?
Because they'd just be getting wrecked, and they're like,
No, I think
Malice just ruined my career because
someone would ask like, what's going on with the withdrawal of troops from Syria and the Middle East, and it'd be like, there's no reason for us to be at war in the Middle East, so we're bringing the troops back. Next question. Like Dave Smith would be like, we're ending the wars, we're getting everybody out of here, this is a waste of our time and money, and then there'd be no spin. They'd be like, yeah, we're ending the foreign wars like we promised.
Yeah, but then Lockheed Martin would call up NBC and be like, yo, you guys can't send a reporter there anymore. This is really bad.
Well, hold on. Can you imagine?
And it would be an empty room.
But let's think about that. With all of those clips where it's like, brought to you by Pfizer, brought to you by Pfizer. What do you think the media would do with like a President Dave Smith? You got President Dave Smith, Vice President Maj Touré with a Michael Malice press secretary. The news would be the most insane thing ever. There would be like photoshopped images of Michael Malice kicking puppies. Like Lockheed would be like, shut him down. Like, I don't care. Like, it would just be the craziest news you could imagine. If you thought it was bad with Trump, imagine actually getting some libertarians in who are like, yeah, we're going to shut down the military-industrial complex.
Yeah, they wouldn't get that. That's the point. Is like, they wouldn't let it happen.
Well, and for that matter, think about the news cycle if they actually became competitive. Right now, among millennials, overwhelmingly, they reject both parties. Most, like, younger people are more okay with the Republicans. I'll put it this way. Younger people that lean conservative or libertarian are more okay with the Republican Party than young people are with the Democratic Party. Young leftist-leaning individuals despise Democrats. It's like 35% of millennials and Gen Z think the Democratic Party is trash, but they are leftists. They are left-leaning or liberal. So it's possible that you'll get eventually a third party that actually breaks through. I don't know about winning the presidency, but I just imagine if there's a real risk, one of the fears among Democrats is the Libertarian Party actually pulls votes from the Democratic Party, not the Republican. They thought that. They thought the Libertarian Party was going to hurt the Republican Party, but I think what happened in 2016 is it actually hurt Democrats. It pulls their votes. So they would have no choice but to try and destroy the Libertarian candidates because it's bad for them, for the establishment. I think that'd be interesting to see. What are they going to do about it, huh?
It could be a Pfizer party.
A Pfizer party?
Yeah, they'd probably win.
The Pfizer party.
I mean, yeah, if corporations are people, my friend.
Yeah,
then,
exactly.
Then why couldn't a corporation run for office?
Well, now we
have
have
the funding.
people speaking on behalf of corporations, but pretending they're still people.
Yeah.
But that's what our White House press secretary is doing right now.
I don't know if there's a solution to all of the political BS that's going on. I feel like it's just gotten to the point where the emperor has no clothes. Even the journalists now can't pretend otherwise. And there's no solution. There's no like moment where people all agree like, hey, this probably isn't working. Let's get like some competent people in here. No, it's just like, I won't let you win, so I'll do whatever it takes, even if it means putting Biden in office.
I don't know. I think that there is some kind of change that will happen from this. Like if you looked at the last major populist election or major populist, I guess, uprising, you could argue that there are a couple more in between, but William Jennings Bryan in 1896 gave that famous speech, The Cross of Gold, and he wanted to switch to the silver standard, which would help small businesses and farmers. And William Jennings Bryan was like 36 years old, went into the DNC, gave this amazing speech, total dark horse candidate, took the presidential candidacy, ended up losing, but both political parties changed majorly in the wake of that. And actually the Bull Moose Party, Teddy Roosevelt, that was kind of the aftermath of both parties. That's when the Democratic Party really switched from the party of the South to the starting towards the working class, party of the working class, which, you know, FDR's party
I mean, they were still extremely racist around then for a couple decades.
Yeah, look, I'm not here to defend the Democratic Party of 1896. I'm just saying that the shift started when this dark horse came out of nowhere and gave this amazing speech about how he's going to help out the little guy. And even though he didn't win, he came close. And it forced both parties to reckon with the fact that they weren't acknowledging that aspect of the population. So I don't know. I think that's a good thing.
I want to talk about this story here. Let's talk about Jordan Peterson.
Oh, by the way, rule of thumb.
Yeah.
Real quick. It was William Blackstone, 1723. That was the basis of U.S. common law, which came from English common law, which was the rule of thumb. But he didn't explicitly state the thumb law in the United States. So he's talking about beating your wife and how to do it.
Let's pull up this story. Let's talk about the good doctor, Jordan Peterson. The Daily Mail says controversial Jordan Peterson
So
tears up as he agrees he's a hero to incel men and responds to Olivia Wilde calling him an insane pseudo-intellectual, saying it really didn't bother me. This is a great story. It's an important story. Jordan Peterson makes a really good point when he says, so he's asked by Piers Morgan, are you a hero to incel men? He says, okay, why not? And then he actually starts crying, which, he cries a lot.
He's a very empathic person.
Yeah.
And I think that he knows he's a hero to incel men because he's like, these men have no one else saying this to them. Like,
Well,
you've got to strike a chord with him.
This is what he says. He says something to the effect of, it's interesting how there are men who don't know what to do. They're lonely and unsuccessful, and they're trying to figure out how to improve, and they're just attacked and insulted, and you get these, insults against them. He said, I thought the marginalized were supposed to have a voice. Ooh. Instead, people like Olivia Wilde saying she made a movie based on him. In what way is Jordan Peterson in any way insane? It's just like they just hate anyone who I suppose it's, I got to be honest, I really don't understand why they hate Jordan Peterson so much, but I would have to assume that it's because he's empowering them to the individual.
Yes, I think so. I was actually thinking about this earlier today because I was listening to a remix of his spoken word, as I sometimes do, because what he has to say is interesting and wise. And I was thinking, I think that they hate him because they're evil. And he's trying to construct people, and they only know how to destroy people. And they're doing that with him, just like they've done with lonely men over the past few years. That was what I came up with. I'm gravitating toward the idea that they truly are evil because it seems.
I think it's their source of their identity comes from this, culture war that they perceive Jordan Peterson to be the enemy, and because maybe, I don't know, they didn't have a loving family or something like that, that they have to cling to the tribe of Me Too, and that they'll just continue with that regardless of how much it's grounded in reality.
Well, just to add to this point, I think they also prop themselves up by stepping on other people. Yeah. I think that's the norm. And this is why Jordan Peterson is such a horrible person to them, because he's like, hey, don't get stepped on. Hey, so stand up for yourself. You're a human being. Others. Have some dignity. Have some respect for yourself. And it counters the agenda, which is going along with the destruction of the modern man.
Yeah, have a dirty room.
Have a dirty room. Don't be organized. Don't have your stuff together, because that's bad for business. Because when you're disorganized, when you're disheveled, when you don't have family, when you're mentally and physically weak, you're the perfect consumer, and I think that's exactly what they're after. They want you to be a consumer. It's bad for business when people stand up for themselves, when they have families, when they're healthy, when they're happy. And this is why Jordan Peterson trying to help people is not along with the agenda. We have to stop Jordan Peterson because Jordan Peterson is stopping our agenda.
Is there truth to this claim when, like, you see women like Olivia Wilde saying this stuff, that they have bad relationship with their fathers?
Yes, 100%. Because maybe it's because of how I was raised, but I had a really good, really solid relationship with my dad, and I still consider myself really lucky for that. But I see that a lot of people, there's nothing else you can conclude. I think that's what they're missing. What do you think, Richie?
Well, I think I have a personal connection with Jordan Peterson because when my dad was sick, I started listening to his Old Testament lectures. Yeah. And that was really right when he was coming into the public sphere. And I think that's part of it too, is there's a religious component there, which is one of the reasons why Jordan Peterson is threatening, because he's articulating all of these kind of old biblical ideas in a modern context, and it resonates with people, and people see a resurgence of the religious right, which, growing up, I didn't understand the power of it until I was confronted with something as difficult as, like a tragedy in your family. But I think that's really what it is Jordan Peterson actually has a point. And that's scary to people who like things the way they are, where they have power.
They want incels. They want white supremacists.
They need
so
them.
When Jordan Peterson comes out and says identitarianism is bad and don't be an incel, improve your life, they're like, he's damaging our access to a boogeyman. The media desperately tries to come out claiming everyone's a white supremacist or a white nationalist. Vox has that famous article where it's like, 11 million people have white supremacist views or some other ridiculous nonsense. And then Jordan Peterson comes out and he's like, hey, don't have these views. Don't be a collectivist. Pick up the heaviest thing you can find and carry it. Work on yourself. Clean your room. All of these things are going to turn these incels into functioning members of society. And it's going to give them strength. And these woke people are terrified of it.
It's one of the main things standing in their way of full conquest, the full control of humanity. It's the subjugation of the modern man. And I do believe they were successful, especially when you look at testosterone levels, sperm levels, mental health, physical health. It's all declining along with IQ. So there is something else going on here. And seeing this kind of concerted attack against individuals who are there to predominantly help people should be concerning for the average viewer, should be concerning for anyone watching this, because we are seeing the destruction of the modern man. I don't think that's a crazy statement to assert here, because the results are clear, especially in our current political and societal system. You can't ignore it. So I think we do need help, but no one's helping them, and the only person who is getting attacked. How does that make sense?
By the way, I actually just looked it up to make sure from what I recalled, but I did a freelance gig in DC with a guy named Andrew Cockburn, and there was a photo of Olivia Wilde, and I looked it up to see
that's her name.
So I met Olivia Wilde's dad and answered Olivia's question, and he's a journalist, and I didn't glean much from the interview itself because I was just setting up cameras and it was an interview, but he seemed to be a nice guy.
But I don't know if she could just be pandering. Right, Olivia Wilde is like, hey, I can say this thing.
Exactly.
But people often say, like, when you see these feminists, these women on Twitter, it's like they had a bad relationship with their father. I'm wondering, is that just a meme, or does that come from somewhere? Is that true that women with bad relationships tend to lash out in this way?
Well, so as far as I can tell, it's not feminists typically that are accused of having daddy issues. It's women who are on places like OnlyFans who are seeking the approval of men actively over the top, being hoes, honestly.
I think it's just we have a culture, like you said, of destruction.
Rachel Dolezal has an OnlyFans.
Oh, gosh.
I saw that.
Oh.
Well, there's also a lot of concerning stats when it comes to single parent households and households where the father is not there, especially when it comes to criminality, especially when it comes to people's overall life expectancy, their happiness, their health. A lot of it is correlated with how they're brought up. And if they're not brought up with a strong family unit, the individual does suffer. The child does suffer, not just mentally, but also physically. So I think those stats can't be ignored. Jordan Peterson talks about them a lot and talks about the importance of a family unit. And I think this is also, again, one of the reasons why they're like, hey, he's bad. We got to stop him.
Yeah, he basically sticks his thumb in the entire postmodern world order, which is like this idea that everybody had of, we don't need all that stuff. You don't need to have this nuclear family and a white picket fence and a car in order to be happy. And he says, no. I mean, that's what you were saying. It's like there's an agenda that's been around for 40 years and he's just calling it all out very effectively.
I feel like someone's feelings or expressed feelings about someone like Jordan Peterson is a good indicator of whether or not they're a sentient being or an NPC. I'm being somewhat facetious, but what I mean is a rational person will say either I'm not familiar, I've heard about Jordan Peterson, but I've not listened to him before, so I have no real strong opinions. Or they'll say something rational like, I've listened to him, I'm not a big fan. Some of the points he made about religion I don't agree with. Or they'll say, I'm a big fan of the things he said because, this, that, or otherwise. Any one of those responses indicates a thinking person who's like, let me try and figure this out. But the people who are like, he's an incel hero, evil, alt-right, whatever, they clearly haven't done any groundwork to understanding or listening to anything that he has to say. So if you were trying to figure out if someone is a discerning individual or let's just say an NPC in the colloquial sense, you can ask them about Jordan Peterson. Trump's too overt. Everybody knows Trump. He's up there. He's big. There's always something to say about him. But these people, I bet if you went to Olivia Wilde and said, really, so what don't you like about Jordan Peterson? What do you think makes him insane? She would have no answer at all.
She doesn't know.
Because he's famous enough, but he's still obscure enough where my point is, Trump's in the news. You can easily have remembered something he said and then been like, I don't like how he handled this thing. And then you're like, okay. With Jordan Peterson, they're going to have nothing because they don't actually listen to anything he's ever said.
Yeah, they're terrified of being canceled. That's everybody's. That's the culture that we live in today, which is everything that happens is forever on the internet. And if you say one wrong thing, then your whole life is going to be over. And nobody wants to say that one wrong thing because, I don't know, that's the world we live in where critical thinking isn't valued.
You're not supposed to think. You're supposed to react. You're supposed to have emotions. You're supposed to, of course, just go along with the group think, go along with the herd, do what you're told, and essentially people thinking for themselves, that's extremely dangerous for a system that thrives off of ignorance. And there's a lot of ignorance. I think there's no denying that.
I mean, she just reminds me of like when you go to a college and you interview the students outside and say, "Why are you protesting Michael Knowles?" "Oh, because he's a Nazi." "Well, what did he say? What was the thing he said?" "Well, I heard, well, I know." Like, she didn't really write this script or anything. I do believe that, I think you guys are right that she's just pandering. And I mean, the story's about like a cult leader, in like a town. It's not like that. It doesn't really have anything to do with Jordan Peterson is not a cult leader by any means. He's just like an intellectual,
a self-help
who's trying to help people.
Do you have a Ukraine flag in your bio? Because if you don't, I'm coming for you.
All right, well, hold on, guys. We got breaking news.
Yeah.
Rapper Coolio's passed away of cardiac arrest.
Oh no!
He was at a friend's house, and he went to the bathroom, and then he didn't come back from the bathroom. They went inside, found him on the floor. He had a cardiac arrest. I guess it's a heart attack.
Oh.
Damn.
59 years old.
He's in Gangster's Paradise now.
Pour one out for the
Gangster's
G.
Paradise. Pour one out for Coolio, man.
Can I pour a little of this in the garbage? Just
I guess.
I guess. Why
Is
not?
that beer?
Yeah, it's
You
beer.
that's part of pouring one out. It can't be like
All right, here he goes.
soda. There we go. I poured it out.
He
Wow.
poured a little bit out. So is 59? I mean, that's kind of young, isn't
That
it?
is young.
For a heart attack? Is that?
It depends on was he doing a bunch of hard drugs? That's what the first thing I want to know. Because that
Oh,
will
I don't
increase
know.
your risk of
mean,
cardiac
Or
issues.
had he in the past and
Right.
left him with a weakened heart or something?
Yeah, that
Yeah.
sucks though. Poor guy.
Yeah, man. Just hearing a lot of these. You guys hear about the surfer? He was 24 years old and he had a stroke while surfing.
What?
And then died.
Oh my
Yeah.
god.
Yeah, it was like a 24-year-old. Like they said, he was like a prodigy surfer.
Yep.
What the heck?
And then falls over like while surfing and then drowns. And then they were like, he had a stroke while he was surfing. It's crazy, man. Crazy stuff,
And
Just
surfers are like the most, cardiovascularly fit people
Yeah.
that you'll meet. So,
Well, I think, just we're seeing a lot of people, a lot of stories have been popping up about people suddenly dying and stuff. And, it's just, it reminds you of the nature of reality that, life is fleeting.
I mean,
you're not allowed to ask any questions.
Little
about
kids
that,
are
okay?
getting-
This program is brought to you by Pfizer.
Well, he was a big barbecue. He was a big barbecue guy.
Coolio was?
Yeah. Like he used to do like guest, pit appearances. Maybe it was cholesterol that killed him. You don't know.
Doubt. I don't know.
And by the way, I think it was
There's a lot of propaganda with cholesterol out there.
I want to say Kalani Robb, but I'm trying to remember the surfer's name. It was Kalani something. I can't remember his last name. The guy who died.
There was a viral video about a little girl who got myocarditis. It was an ad for, was it New York Presbyterian Hospital or something like that?
Yeah.
And this little girl's like, I got the worst stomachache ever, and it turned out I had myocarditis, so the doctors gave me medicine. And it's just you got to pay attention to this stuff because we weren't talking about children getting myocarditis a few years ago, and now it's become this enough to where the hospitals are doing commercials for it, and a lot of people that we feel maybe be a little bit too young are having heart attacks or dying in their sleep. So it's just something that we should pay attention to. That life is fleeting,
You never
and
know. Yeah.
it's just. It goes to show that in the past few years, we've really come to understand the importance of talking about mortality. Because we clearly were ignoring these stories only a few years ago, Only a few years ago, we weren't talking about the kids getting myocarditis and,
Yeah,
and for whatever reason,
Yeah,
And-
it's as if there was some kind of intervention that happened that people had to partake in, that they were extorted and manipulated.
well, I don't know about any of that, Luke. I'm just saying, like,
I'm just saying. No, I'm just speculating here. I'm not saying.
Don't say that thing that rhymes with schmentanol either. Okay, don't bring that up.
Oh yeah.
You're not allowed to talk
I have
about
no
it.
idea.
guys are talking
I have no idea what you're talking
I'm just
about.
saying,
No
look,
clue.
No clue.
Coolio, look, is it? Maybe it's unfair to accuse him of having done drugs. Maybe it's not. Musicians and rock stars. He had big hit in the '90s. Maybe
High risk lifestyle.
Yeah, high risk, man. Maybe that's what it's all about, and maybe it's climate change.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
I was about to say that.
Yeah.
Took the words out of my mouth.
If
Yeah,
only
maybe-
those damn Republicans funded climate
know,
change,
right?
Coolio would still be
Could've been
alive.
avoided.
Sad,
Yeah.
really.
Well, now, actually, let's do this. Let's pull up this. Do I have this story? Let me see if I still have it. I might not have it. Here we go. We got the story here from CBS. Don Lemon tries to pin Hurricane Ian on climate change without evidence. Oh, that's an excellent headline from a CBS outlet. Like seriously.
It's a local outlet.
Local, yeah.
Well, of course. So let me play this clip because it's so.
Can you tell us what this is
dude.
and what effect
Listen to
climate
this.
change has on this phenomenon?
We can come back and talk about climate change at a later time. I want to focus on the here and now. We think the rapid intensification is probably almost done. There could be a little bit more intensification as it's still over the warm waters of the eastern Gulf of Mexico, but I don't think we're going to get any more rapid intensification. If you look here, you can actually see, pretty interesting for your viewers, you can actually see a second eye wall forming around the inner eye wall, and that's basically the second eye wall has overtaken the original eye wall, and that should arrest development.
So listen, I'm just trying to get that. You said you want to talk about climate change, but what effect does climate change have on this phenomenon that is happening now? Because it seems these storms are intensifying. That's the question.
I don't think you can link climate change to any one event.
Okay.
On the whole, on the cumulative, climate change may be making storms worse, but to link it to any one event, I would caution against that.
Okay. Well, listen, I grew up there, and these storms are intensifying. Something is causing them to intensify. So this storm is it's a massive one. It's affecting.
Trust the science, they said, as Don Lemon goes, I'm talking to a scientist, but I have personal anecdotal experience, and I think the storms are worse.
But how does that fit into my talking point?
duh.
I have a talking point, and what you're saying doesn't fit with it. So can you take what you're saying and fit it into my script that I wrote for you?
Can you recommend another scientist to speak to? Because I'm not trusting
He's
your
like, that
science.
guy's never coming back on ever again.
I mean, Don Lemon's not really known for his intelligence. He prophesized and theorized how a black hole swallowed the Malaysian airplane just a few years ago. So we're not expecting much from him. I'm not, at least.
That was funny when he did that. And the lady, I made a little video about it years ago. He's talking to this woman, and he's like, a lot of people online are saying that the plane may have been swallowed by a black hole. I know it's preposterous, but is it preposterous, Mary? And the woman goes, your plane is a small black hole would swallow the whole universe.
Oh my gosh.
She actually says
better.
a small black hole would swallow
better.
the whole universe.
So good.
And it's just like, lady, there's like a billion black holes or whatever, like that we can see.
No, but
Well, not
Snopes did
really
a fact
see,
check on that, and it's actually it's true.
A small black hole would actually.
Yeah, Snopes did a fact check. So
There's a supermassive black hole at the center of the Milky Way galaxy, as far as we believe, and universe still exists. So whatever. But that's Don Lemon. And then when I brought that up, I've had people defend him over that, and they're like, well, he's just trying to do a show, and I'm like, what? If I get a couple of stoners and sit them down, and they're sitting there with big bicycle, big twirly mustaches, being like, dude, what if a black hole ate a plane? I'd be like, all right, this is a good show. Let's order some pizzas, get some sodas, and just let it roll because this is funny. But when CNN, the most trusted name in news, is doing things like that, I gotta say, maybe your brand ain't all what it's cracked up to be. This clip is amazing because what did he try 3 times? He's like, how does climate change play a role? He goes, it doesn't, and he goes, well, but climate change. And he's like, no climate change. Well, I live there, so climate change.
Yeah, I don't want to know about the hurricane. I want to know why hurricanes are getting bigger because of climate change. Why can't you answer my question?
Do we have issues like this? I know that the liberal left Democrat types, it's like fascism, white supremacy, climate change. They can easily just shout anything young kids are getting sick and having heart attacks. Must be climate change. No doubt. No, I'm not kidding. There were articles talking about how there was an increase in heart attacks or cardiac events, and they were like, we think climate change is causing it. And I'm like, whatever, boss. Do we have anything like that? Can I be like Don Lemon asking this question is communism? Can I just accuse everything? Everything's communism.
Yeah. But at the same time, remember the story? It wasn't even a direct Trump quote, but there was a story that Trump asked why we couldn't nuke a hurricane, can't we just nuke a hurricane? And people got upset with him, like, oh my God, why would he do that? It's like, because he wants to stop a hurricane. I mean, it's not like a nefarious thing. It's not like the nuclear bomb is gonna make the hurricane stronger. It's like he's trying to stop a hurricane.
Haven't you seen, what is it, The Core? Have you seen The Core? With
Hilary Swank.
I watch a lot of crappy action movies.
Aaron
I don't think
Eckhart.
I've seen The Core.
So they go down to the center of the earth, and then they have to detonate a bunch of nukes in succession. Well, so I guess the plan was to drop a bunch of nukes and then blow them all up, so it starts the core spinning again. Okay, hold on. The core of the earth stops spinning, so
makes sense. Yeah.
The planet's being destroyed because there's no magnetosphere or whatever. So they have to like drill to the center of the earth, and then they find that the mantle is actually hollow or something. I don't know, there's dinosaurs or whatever. There's no dinosaurs, I'm kidding. But anyway, they get to the core, and then they're like, land of the lost. But anyway, they get to the core, and they're like, we got to detonate these nukes, and then it will start the spin again and keep the core going, which will generate the magnetic sphere, whatever, and magnetosphere. And then they find out that they actually miscalculated the size. They didn't realize the Earth was hollow, so they don't have enough nuclear power in the warheads to actually, spin the core. So what they do is they deploy them in succession, so it creates a ripple effect. So it goes 1, 2, 3, instead of all at once. And that's so maybe Trump was not wrong. A single nuke won't do it, but 12 nukes could
Sounds
1,
good.
2,
Sounds
3,
right.
4, and then it stops the spin from happening.
If
Just like
12
that.
nukes could save one human life, then it's
No,
worth
they
it.
did the same thing when he asked if we could drone strike the cartels. And everyone was like, what an idiot, he is asking if we can drone strike. It's like, well, we
it's
drone
based.
strike weddings in the Middle East, and no one has a problem with that.
Barack
So
Obama's blown up kids.
It's like these guys are making drugs that are killing our citizens, and we can drone strike a wedding in the Middle East. Everyone will be silent. But, you want to kill cartel members.
I think the reality is that, like, if we nuked the hurricane, all that would do is make a radioactive hurricane. And it would be like blowing radioactive particles everywhere, and it would just be that much worse.
No, I think
You
the
could
media.
surf that, though, for sure.
I think the media would come out and go, why would he want to do that to that poor hurricane? Why they would just spin it to say, like, he's racist against hurricanes or something.
Oh yeah, they'd be like, "It's a natural phenomenon. He clearly hates the environment. It's just, he just wants
He
to
hates Mother
destroy
Nature."
Yeah, Mother Nature.
He's sexist against Mother
There you
Nature.
go. Yep.
Well, Tim ruined my night because now I have to go home and watch The Core.
Oh no.
No, you don't.
Yes, I
you don't.
I do now. I do. Yes, I do.
And who else is in it?
It's Hillary
is
Swank
Stanley,
Oh, my
Stanley
God.
Tucci in
It's
it.
an all-star cast.
Yeah, and I think somebody died in it too. Like they stayed down in the core while
Yeah, a
everybody,
bunch of them do.
I can't remember.
Did
Yeah,
Bruce Willis have to stay back to save the world?
No, he
No, that
wasn't
was
in
the
it.
other one. That was Armageddon.
Armageddon.
Yeah,
who was
but
who?
then there's also wasn't there another movie that was basically the same as The Core because they did Armageddon.
Oh, no, it was Deep Impact.
But that's
Same time it came out as
Deep
came out same
Impact
year.
was the same as Armageddon though.
Yes. Oh, you're saying there's another Core.
Yeah,
Oh,
wasn't
now I have to
there?
watch both of them.
Well, yeah, you can't watch Armageddon without watching Deep Impact.
Stanley Tucci, Bruce Greenwood, who he was like the captain in Star Trek.
Oh.
The Star Trek movies.
Yeah, Stanley Tucci sacrifices himself.
At least those were original ideas in Hollywood, Like
D-
they were like,
D-
Paramount's coming out with one about the Core now. So we got to come out with one.
Yeah,
too.
what's up with that?
At least it was like original ideas. Now it's just like they're remaking remakes because the
true.
other studio's remaking the other remake.
Yo, how many Spider-Mens do we have?
How many
Just like
Godzillas have there been? Like
Oh.
Godzilla remakes. It's ridiculous.
well,
cultural stagnation, man.
But at least Spider-Man. at
that
least there's
She-Hulk though. Oh, it's a phenomenal
love
film.
it.
It's not a
phenomenal-
film.
it's beautifully.
It's a series.
Oh,
But it feels
clearly
like a
didn't
film.
watch
it.
But it feels like a film.
I must have
It
only
feels like
watched
a
the first
cinematic
episode.
masterpiece.
No. Look, I'm a huge MCU fan. I'm a big fan of the MCU, and She-Hulk is some of the worst.
you just caught me in
garbage
an
I've
NPC.
I've ever seen. Look, I praised the first couple episodes. Like, that's entertaining. Like, she's fighting with the Hulk, and they're talking about superheroes and stuff. The show now is trying to be a lawyer comedy written by people who don't know anything about lawyers, and it's just really, really bad. The last episode was so bad that I was just clicking skip every few. I'd click 10-second jump, and then they'd be nonsense in 10 seconds, nonsense, 10 seconds, nonsense, and then I was like, okay, there was no episode here. I'll tell you when the show starts and she looks to the camera and she goes, yes, this episode is a self-contained wedding episode, and I was like, okay, next. It is some of the worst programming.
So now I have to watch both Core movies and the entire season of She-Hulk.
Yeah.
Because the worse it is, the more I have to watch it. And
Oh, it's so bad.
oh man.
And they're dangling Daredevil in front of everybody to convince people to watch it. That's the only thing they got.
Oh, Daredevil. Oh, because he's a lawyer.
Because right, and he's going to be in
Yeah.
like episode 8 or something.
Don't you ever like watching like a $200 million piece of hot garbage though? And you're like, how?
Here's what we're doing. I got it. I'm going to make a new movie, and it's about a guy named Andrew who can has the powers of an alpaca.
Oh.
He has alpaca powers.
Sure.
And it's going to be good because you think about Spider-Man, and it's like one of the hottest Marvel properties, and it's the stupidest concept for a superhero. Like if you were like, it's a guy who can throw he can freeze things. It's like, okay, it's a guy who can throw fireballs. Like, I get it. It's a guy who is Spider. He can climb walls and stuff. I'd be like, well, okay, I guess. So, we grew up with it, so we think it's normal. I think that if I make Alpaca Man and, he's really strong and he's hairy and, he's like Sasquatch or something.
And he makes sweaters from his sheddings,
that's
right?
a superpower.
Well, maybe. But, like, he spits on people. I think Alpaca spit on people, right?
Can we have a
That's
Wolverine
camels?
cameo, too? Can we do that?
And Wolverine's shearing him as, like, to be polite with his things.
He's shearing the hair.
Sweaters out of his hands.
All right, okay, no,
He
you
just
guys are
poops
making
everywhere.
fun of my idea. How about we do a better one? It's a guy, and he can. No, I like the alpaca thing. I'm taking it. Here's what I'm saying. I could make Alpaca Man, and with good story writing, it would work, and it would be an original idea. We're culturally stagnant. We've got 87 Spider-Man movies, 87 Marvel movies, and now like the whole MCU is just vomiting up old stories from the 50s, 60s, 70s. They're just regurgitating all the same characters again and again and again. It's like someone just make something new. Just anything.
They did. She-Hulk.
She-Hulk is not new. She-Hulk is from the 70s.
You want to know why?
Did you not know that?
But She-Hulk hasn't been a property, like a
Yes, it
movie
has.
property.
There's multiple comics. There's television show arcs. Bro, She-Hulk is a long-standing
She-Hulk's
character.
been on TV?
Yes.
Really?
No, She-Hulk is a character that's appeared on numerous shows in the Marvel universe.
I did not know that.
Yes.
Well, like in the comics, obviously.
But on cartoons, I think she was in the X-Men Saturday morning cartoon in the 90s and stuff like that. She-Hulk is a character that's been around for a long time, for decades. And they're just saying, like, let's pull up the old library of things that have been made 50, 60 years ago and redo it. And I'm just like, bro, I would rather watch a guy who looks like an alpaca fighting crime.
It's because China is the biggest market for Hollywood now. And, that like Transformers
It's new to them.
57 just goes off the chart.
This is why I like
what
Fast and
the
Furious. Because Fast and the Furious is a relatively new cultural phenomenon.
I love Fast.
The Fast and the Furious
Up to
cinematic
Fast 5.
universe is the greatest cinematic universe. And, they went to outer space in the last one. I talk about this all the time. In F9, they go to outer space. In Hobbs and Shaw, they got a super soldier cybernetically enhanced. I'm saying in F10, I want to see superpowers or maybe mech suits.
I
I want to
Make it
see
original,
Paul
baby.
Walker.
I
like,
saw a
CGI
comedian.
back in.
I saw a comedian on TikTok talk about. He was like, I was watching one of the Fast and Furious movies, and they introduced Ludacris's character, and he has like a garage, and then his side hustle is that he organizes these races, right? And then he goes, I hadn't really seen everything in the series, and I skipped to episode 9 or 10. And there's Ludacris. He's like, I'm hacking into the Pentagon. Like, where did that arc come from? Like, he was a guy in a garage, and now he's a hacker.
You know where the arc, it all changed? I think it was Fast 5 when they're taking the plane off the runway, and it's like a 30-minute scene, and it takes 30 minutes for the plane to take off, and you're just like, okay, the suspension of disbelief is like, this has been 30 minutes that they've been on this runway.
I mean,
makes no sense.
These movies they're so over the top and so ridiculous, but there's just something about them that make them entertaining.
Yeah, Vin Diesel's biceps.
Here's what we do. For F10, they have mech suits, and Ludacris is like, Dom is like, we got a problem. My brother is joined up with my other brother and my sister, and now they're taking over the world. And he's like, I don't know how we stop him. And Ludacris is like, I got you. And he builds a mech suit, like an Iron Man suit. And then Dom is like, he can fly, and he's like, and then they all get mech suits. And then what happens is for F11, he's wearing the new experimental armor from Ludacris, and while he's fighting a group of terrorists, there's damage to the fusion core, which blows up, causing a chain reaction, and all the suits erupt. But the energy from the core gives them all superpowers. And now, now he can actually
He can just
fly.
run faster than his Dodge Charger.
Yeah, now he's got super speed. So he's like, you want to race? And then he's like, gotta go fast. And then what we do is we start a
Got a
petition.
NOS button.
Yeah, we got to get Disney to buy Universal so we can introduce them into the MCU. And then we'll have an original new thing over.
Okay, how about this? We just start making movies that don't suck.
We're doing it.
No.
I'm okay.
I'm waiting.
Fast
I'm
27
waiting
after
for.
that.
I'm waiting for Trans Hulk. Okay, it's gonna come, and then in the next few years, and there's gonna be microaggressions, and they're gonna Hulk out, and it's gonna be awesome to see. And I'm waiting for that movie.
Did you just misgender me? Let's pull up this story here talking about culture. We got this from IndieWire. It's weirdly hard to read. Stranger Things star, what's his name? Caleb.
Yeah.
Caleb? It's cut off by the thing. McLaughlin calls out fan racism. Why am I the least favorite? You feel the bigotry, McLaughlin said. Sometimes it's hard to talk about and for people to understand, but when I was younger, it definitely affected me a lot. First, I want to point out, here's what he said. He said, why am I the least favorite? Have the least amount of followers? He said, as a part of a deep conversation. I'm on the same show as everybody from season 1. So, like, the dude has less followers than his co-stars. So he immediately sues us because people don't like him because he's black. Now, in that capacity, right there, I saw this story, and a lot of other people saw the story, and they started saying, like, oh, this is wokeness, this is a problem. And then I read further, and I realized he is 100% correct. I believe the reason he has less followers is because many fans of the show are, in fact, racist, and he hit the nail on the head with the hammer. And you want to know what's missing from the context in this conversation? He says, sometimes overseas you feel the racism, you feel the bigotry. Sometimes it's hard to talk about and for people to understand, but when I was younger, it definitely affected me a lot. That's right. Outside of the United States, there's probably a lot of people who won't follow him because they are racist. You take a look at what happened with Star Wars in China, and they took the dude who played Finn off the cover. What, did they shrink him or something, or they put him in a helmet?
They put him in a helmet.
They put him in a helmet because they were like, people in China are very, very racist, and they don't want to see this. And so the Disney, as a corporation, was like, yeah, we're totally fine with that. That to me is insane. But this dude's seemingly not talking about people in America. He's saying, like, I got less followers than them. Yeah, it's probably people in China and other countries that would watch Stranger Things but are racist. So there you go, man.
I'm on his Instagram page right now. It doesn't look like he posts a lot, and he already, as of now, has 15.4 million followers.
Why does he have more followers than me?
That's
it's
not
because
fair.
people don't like mixed race people. That is the only possible explanation.
Oh my God.
That's it.
I can't believe only 15 million people would follow him. That's
15.4.
unreal.
Yes, on Instagram.
Unreal.
He's one of the most famous people in the world, and he's like,
man, people overseas don't like me as much as my other cast members.
And he's not
What
that
a
active.
What a victim.
Like he posted on July 30th, September 9th,
Yeah.
Isn't that
September
what people?
12th, September 16th, September 18th, and that's it. That's all the posts.
Wait, maybe he deleted some or something.
So this is inadvertently making the case that America is in fact the greatest country on earth.
We're
or am
more
I
enlightened,
wrong?
exactly.
I'm just
But that's
saying.
why people don't want you to like real. So if you're saying that America is an inherently racist country, can you find me one that isn't?
Exactly.
Good question.
well, if America is the least racist country, but it is racist, then every country is substantially worse and more racist.
There you go.
Bingo.
You got it.
Well.
That's it. But you're not allowed to say that, so this show's shut down, and
Cancel.
that'll be it.
America
good
is a
run.
great place.
Yeah.
That's why everybody desperately wants to be here.
Correct.
And then what's funny is we're seeing these videos. There's a video that went viral that Jack Posobiec was sharing about this like white woman, and she's like, "Hi everybody, I moved down to Guatemala to be part of a sustainable living community." And then she's like spinning, and like she's like, "There's an active volcano." And then I saw that, and I was like, "Is this why woke people don't like white people? Because
They suck.
it's a really annoying thing to have these like hippie man bun, like elitists." Be like, I'm gonna move down to Guatemala to teach the poor people, and it's just like, ugh.
Yeah,
Is
to
that what they
Peru.
were talking
Move to
about?
Peru.
Because I gotta agree that is annoying for these people to do. But it's funny because you have white people leaving the U.S. going to Mexico and going to Central America. At the same time, you have people from Central America trying to come to the United States. So it just it's kind of funny how that works, huh?
I just can't stop thinking about this kid. He wants to be a victim so bad. He's a millionaire. He's on a hit series. 15.4 million people follow him, and yet he's like, it's not enough. Like you really need to. I mean, it's a quote from an article. Maybe there's more to this kid, but Caleb, if you're listening, just appreciate what you have, and don't
get caught up in the numbers.
Yeah, don't get caught up in what you don't have and how other people think about you. Appreciate the fact that 15.4 million kids like you and love you, and that you're a millionaire and you're probably set for life.
That you could reach out to and have a positive impact on by promoting personal responsibility, good values, good morals, and you could lead as an example of something good, rather than, of course, just concentrating on something that is negative. And I think there is an aspect of society promoting victimization, promoting, as you mentioned, Andrew, this larger idea, hey, I'm the victim here, and now you have to really like my stuff on social media, and the algorithms promote that stuff, and I think it's disgusting. I think it should be pushed back on, because in reality, like, we're some of the most privileged, one of the richest people on the face of the world, just by simply living here in the United States. We're so freaking lucky.
Not just in the world, in human history.
Yeah, in human history. So freaking lucky. Everything at our fingertips. And if you want something, go out there and get it. There shouldn't be anything standing in your way.
But that's
So
hard.
I just looked
It's hard
up.
to do.
I looked
hard.
at the net worth
don't like hard.
of the cast of Stranger Things. The first thing I want to say is these like celebrity net worth websites are just very wrong. Like one
of course.
One of them said that like Ian was worth like $5 million or whatever, and we were all kind of
It's
like
10 million, but whatever.
But no, we were kind of like, maybe there's something we're
Dude,
not.
that
we don't-
graphene, he's got those.
Yeah.
I mean, he's a co-founder of Minds, and Minds is worth a lot. So like maybe it wasn't wrong, but I'm pretty sure this stuff's not true. But anyway, it says that Caleb McLaughlin's net worth is $4 million, and there's another person. Let me pull this back up. Whose net worth is only $1 million. I think it's one. I think is it Maya?
Aren't
No.
all those like AI generated websites that are?
No, this is a different one. This is Netflix Life, and
okay.
but it did look at those websites and then compile them. But let's see. Joe Keery's $4 million. Charlie Heaton's $5 million. I mean, okay, here you go. Sadie Sink is worth $1 million.
But she's new.
Right, she's new.
Right, yeah.
But so anyway, my point is, I don't know what their net worth actually is, but I'm pretty sure everyone on this show is a millionaire. And so there is something special about a group of millionaires, and the not even the lowest millionaire is complaining about not having enough. And there's just something where it's like, I don't know how I'm supposed to feel about that. You know what I mean? Like, it's a big group of ultra rich people on a very successful and popular show, and one dude's like, I'm the least favorite. It's not okay. And it's like, well, you're still like literally in the top 1,000 richest people on the planet or something like that.
I mean, this
like, how many
shouldn't even
million?
be a
Well, not
story.
the top 1,000.
This shouldn't even be a news story. It's like, oh, well, people overseas don't like me so much. Okay. And that's it. Like, wow.
But he does mention that people wouldn't get in line for him at Comic-Con. Some people didn't stand in my line because I was black. Some people told me, I don't want to be in your line because you are mean to 11. How does this happen, right? I mean, like, no, I mean this for real. Like, did somebody come to him and tell him that? Just like say racist things to him?
They wouldn't get in. I mean, what's the proof?
Oh, but I mean, it makes tons of sense. Somebody gets in line, they wait for 20 minutes, and they get up to him and say, "Hey, just want to let you know, like me and my friends, didn't want to get in line because of your race,
That's
right?"
ridiculous.
That's what
Do you
they would
remember that BYU story from a couple weeks ago?
No, but
the Duke
we're talking
volleyball
about
player.
it. Yeah, and it was like totally made up.
That got a ton of clicks, and then the real story is like that nobody wants to hear that. So I think that's the point. Is like, hey, how do you keep yourself relevant? How do you get in the headlines? Well, just why don't you go say something controversial that's going to get both sides to click on these websites
And to talk about you and to follow you on social media now.
Yeah,
And
this worked. They were
And
like,
this kid, he's gonna absolutely get sympathy subscribers. It's like, oh, I really like him, and I should have probably followed him. I don't want to be a racist, so I'm gonna click follow on this guy. But he's like a B-list actor. He's not like I mean, when you compare him to Finn Wolfhard or Millie Bobby Brown, I mean, they're like the breakout stars of that show.
Yeah.
He's not, and maybe it's because of his character, the way it's written or whatever. But it's like, if you go to Comic-Con, like, there's not a lot of time. You have to look at the list and see the agenda, like who's going to be there, and you kind of map out and you go, okay, I really want to meet this person. I want to meet this person. And he wouldn't, like, if I was a kid, if I was a Stranger Things fan, I don't know if he'd be in my top 20, honestly.
Here's what I'll say about Stranger Things, though. Mad respect for something original. You know,
Yeah.
it is original.
Well, they
I'm
stole
hoping
that
it
from the
is.
Montauk Project.
No, I know, but the Montauk, the Montauk Project.
He's right. Richie is absolutely
Wake up,
right.
people.
Right, the Montauk Project was
Yeah, it's
written in
upside
what,
down.
like 93 or something? Let me see.
This one.
Yeah, let me see it.
Let's see.
What's
No,
the year?
This is. I think the second one was written somewhere in there.
89 or something?
It was 92. There you
92.
go.
I was close.
And again, nothing wrong. I have nothing against this kid. I don't know anything about his personal life, but he's not one of the breakout stars of the show.
The Montauk Project is fake news, and it's made to look real, and it's very clever and very well done. But my understanding is it's total fiction. And I did a bunch of research into it a while
We're
ago.
gonna have to have a debate on this sometime.
It looks like
actually-
Maybe in the
it
after
looks like
show.
a Mark Dice book.
So I did a bunch of I did a bunch of research into it, and it's like considered to be the story behind it is that they wanted to make a book that overlapped with reality and it would sell better and be marketed as something real, but it was just like a fun shocking
Who?
story.
Preston Nichols?
I don't know. That's what I read. But so maybe it's not true. Maybe it's all real.
You can watch interviews with this guy Preston Nichols. I mean, he's a nutty dude, but he definitely knows like radios and frequencies and all that stuff. And when he talks about how he participated in this project, he draws diagrams and
my point is Stranger Things is inspired by the Montauk Project, but it's like an original concept with like characters and the upside down, the reality. I appreciate it, man.
Yeah, I agree.
I think the show's bad. The last season was just miserably terrible, but I like it because they're doing something new. Like, what do we got now? We got a prequel of Game of Thrones, a prequel of Lord of the Rings. We get more Marvel derivative garbage, and it's just like, okay,
you know when it all happened?
What?
You know when it all started?
When?
It was, I think 1997 was 7 years in Tibet, and they banned that movie from China. And I think it was MGM that produced it. They lost hundreds of millions of dollars. And after that, it was like a message to Hollywood, like, yo, our market's huge, and it better appeal to us as well as the American audience, as well as so now it's a global market that you're going for. So
that's an argument for making new things, not for regurgitating.
No, because it has to be homogenized to the point where it's going to work across a broad population.
Which makes sense that you could write something new to work across.
No, because then you don't know how it's going to do. You're like, Transformers 67 did great, so let's just do 68 and 69.
Well, of course, but that's not.
But let's put a Chinese actress in there to appeal to China, so we can get like.
How do the Chinese feel about this new idea? They're like, I have no clue.
That was Shang-Chi. Shang-Chi was very obviously like they were trying to break into the Chinese market, because the movie had no reason to be in San Francisco at all. Did you guys see it, Shang-Chi?
I don't watch Chinese propaganda.
Whatever.
It's like all of Hollywood now.
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly.
But it was like, you wonder why it is this guy was in San Francisco at all. It's like the story is very much centered around China. And then the main character is like, I'm in San Francisco now for some reason. And now we're going back to China. And they go to like portal to another reality with like, I don't know, pandas or something. And then there's like
that's what they did with Doctor Strange too, right? They changed the Tibetan character.
Yeah, that was so. This is really funny.
So now you have to watch The Core and Shang-Chi.
I do.
So before I want to say
got a lot of work cut out for me.
So there's this meme going around because of the Ariel thing, where they made the Ariel's portrayed by a black actress, and so there's a meme where it's a bunch of non-white characters that were played by white actors, and they were like, no one cared, no one cared, no one cared, and then it shows the screaming Wojak when it shows Ariel, and they're like. The meme basically says, like, nobody cares when white actors play characters of color. And it showed the ancient one in the comic, Tibetan guy. And then it showed Tilda Swinton. And then I had to tell people, like, whenever I see the meme, I'm like, actually, the fans were really upset that they got a white woman to play that, because the reason they got rid of the ancient one was not because of racism, it was because they were trying to appease China. And China didn't want a Tibetan guy. Mm-hmm. And so everyone all of a sudden is like,
there you go.
Oh, that actually makes sense. Why? Like, oh, okay. So wait, you mean the fans really were mad about that? Yeah, like.
But like while you're explaining that, they tuned into like the next TikTok video, and they're like, "Wait, what'd you say? Sorry, I didn't hear that."
And then they started doing a weird meme dance, and then in China they'd ban that stuff.
But they always complain about they always say that people are racist if you gender swap. Or if you race swap, nobody cares. Like Sam Jackson as Nick Fury, where was the outrage there?
Well, Robert Downey Jr. Dude, Robert Downey Jr. He's not
Nick
canceled.
Fury in the comics. Was made black a long time ago.
Tropic Thunder.
But he was white originally.
And
the same thing with the Fantastic Four. I hear that they're looking to possibly make it an all black cast. When the last Fantastic Four they swapped out Johnny Storm
with Michael B. Jordan,
right?
But I think the latest news on Fantastic Four is that they're going to get what's her name, Daddario and her brother, Alexandria Daddario and her brother. Is that her name, Daddario or something? But I don't know, whatever. But her and her brother are going to play Susan Storm. That's what the rumor is. So whatever. What's that guy's name? John Krasinski? Is that the guy? I think he did great as Reed Richards, but I guess they're not going to use him. I don't know. I kind of feel like
he looks great. He looks like Reed Richards.
But he's a good character anyway. He's a good actor. But I got to be honest. I think the MCU is just completely done. It's just become regurgitated derivative garbage at this point. It had something unique when they were like reinvigorating these stories like Iron Man and Captain America and Thor. And I think Endgame was the Endgame. I think after that it's just been like.
Like Black Widow was awful.
Oh yeah.
It was. There's I can't remember who did it. I'm really sorry, but there's like it feels like it's a 5-hour breakdown of this movie showing every tiny little thing that's wrong with it, and it's brilliant. I can't remember who did it, but I watched the last Spider-Man movie, and I've kind of given up. Like I didn't think about watching Thor. I didn't watch Doctor Strange. I was never going to watch She-Hulk.
They're not telling original stories. They're not. Here, I like Doctor Strange. It's a movie. It's an origin story. It's a guy who's doing his thing.
Sure.
Doctor
it's an
Strange.
okay movie.
Doctor Strange 2 is Avengers. Like Thor, Avengers. It's all just Avengers now. It's all like, here's 27 characters all dancing on stage.
And it's just more of a video game than a movie. Like how much of that movie is CGI versus like you look at the budget and then you look at the credits and there's like 20 actors and like 600 animators.
And the only reason I would actually watch it is because it's Sam Raimi directing, but that's it.
We got to go to Super Chats because we're way behind. So if you haven't already, smash that like button, subscribe to the channel, share the show with your friends, head over to Timcast.com, become a member. We're going to have an uncensored show coming up through at 11 p.m. Don't want to miss it. It's going to be a whole lot of fun. Let's read Super Chats.
Faster.
All right. Jack Attack says, the hurricane is worse than I thought. It's knocked out the power grid in Cuba. Thousands are without power in Florida. But worse than that, the Waffle Houses have closed.
That's what I said.
True.
Yeah,
That's when you know things
it's
are bad.
cereal now.
Everybody's like, Tim, move to Florida. Tim,
That's
move
when
to
you know
Florida.
it's serious.
And then I'm like, yeah, okay, maybe. You know. Raymond G. Stanley Jr. says, broken brain Biden totally unawares. Broken brain Biden fell up the stairs. All the king's horses and all the king's men couldn't put Biden's broken brain back together again. Thanks for that one.
It's kind of sad when you hear it like that.
Yeah, there you go.
How is nobody asking
CB
about Luke's cans?
What?
What are you talking about?
Oh yeah, I'm sorry.
CB Robertson says,
Didn't
enjoyed
notice.
the debate about hatred on Monday. I wrote a book called In Defense of Hatred. What people who reject hatred fail to realize that there is no love without the possibility of hatred. Oxytocin is tied with both. Very interesting. Passion. Deserto says, Little Hand says it's time to rock and roll. Brandon Hampson says, Luke got a breast reduction.
That was a Point Break quote.
Now I can finally pay attention to what Tim is saying.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Daniel Caven says, glad to see the Inflation Reduction Act worked on Luke.
Yeah, really.
Not Bob Saget says, please book Alex Jones and Immortal Technique together on the same show. Would go down as a top 3 show of all time.
It would be a great debate. I think they already interviewed each other. And
Debate? They argue?
Well, they come from different perspectives, but they had a cordial sit down and a conversation that was very interesting between the two. And I held the rally with some of my friends in 2006, and it was me, Immortal Technique, Alex Jones, and the makers of Loose Change. We were all at the 5th anniversary at Ground Zero together, and we held an event that raised money for 9/11 first responders. So shouts out to Immortal Technique. He always did a lot of grassroots work, helping a lot of people who needed a lot of help. He's helping a lot of people now. Check out a lot of his projects that he's doing, and I think he would be great for the show, and it might even be a debate, which would be interesting.
Boris Kofifievich says Lydia's expression at Luke's, quote, clapping butt cheeks comment was worth every penny of the super chat.
I didn't notice that.
Unnecessary description.
By the way, that quote that was just read from Point Break is actually the quote that's on the back of my shirt
on the back of
right
my
now.
shirt.
What is the quote?
Little Hand says this.
Oh, is that what it is?
Time to rock.
It
There
says
you go.
Little Hands, it's time to rock and roll.
Yeah.
Well, there you go.
Richie's movie.
Why does it say 2018 on your shirt?
We do a different one every year with a different quote.
Pinochet's helicopter tour says, Tim, the word you're looking for is demoralization. Lizzo mocking the flute is just part of what Yuri Bezmenov warned us about. This was purposeful. No, someone also said it's defile. Defile? Yeah. Was maybe better. I don't know if I think demoralization is the bigger picture. You know, taking items significant to your country's history and then bring up on stage as a spectacle in an entertainment show where it's just like, it diminishes it, you know. Yeah, demoralization. Cheeseburger says it's over, folks. Those who wanted to fix it are demoralized while the rest of our brothers and sisters are all cheering as the train approaches the cliff.
I don't know about that. Do you feel demoralized?
No.
Nope.
I feel uplifted myself.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I don't feel demoralized. I feel like all of this stuff is actually lighting a fire of passion.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
So just go down in a hail of gunfire, but I won't be demoralized. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, like I feel like a lot of what we're seeing is it's Not, like I used to when younger, I'd say like don't bother voting, stuff like that. Like who cares? But now I'm like, everyone, you got to get out, you got to vote. This is so I'm more passionate about this stuff than ever.
Ye 24.
2024.
You voted for Kanye.
Yes, I did. I'm thinking about it for 24.
You're on the fence.
He has a good couple good policy positions I'm considering. So
BP23 says James Madison owned slaves. He was a slave owner, right? Yet she was so honored to play his flute. Seems odd. Congrats, Lizzo. You played the same notes he played to his slaves. Shaking my head. What was he a slave owner though? I'd assume he probably was, but maybe not. Someone want to fact check that?
I like that story. I think we go with it. I like that.
But they would argue that she's appropriated. She's taken it from him.
Yeah, she's taking it back.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, there you go.
Makes
She also, people are saying two things. They're saying she played the flute. She didn't really. She like tooted the flute and then gave it back. Some people are saying she doesn't know how to play a flute. Actually, she's like a trained.
No, she
flautist.
does. Yeah, she's a
flautist.
flautist.
Did you say flautist?
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Flautist.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Richie
Well,
Shaw.
I think she's a flautist in that the way she flouts
the way she dances,
them cheeks, but I guess there's two different definitions.
Yes.
Viola says, I asked my parents if things have ever been this bad, and they said never. They're both 84 years old. That's what I'm saying, man.
So does that mean they lived through World War II? Because if so, that's a little concerning.
They
As
would have been
kids.
very young.
Yeah,
Sure.
that is concern.
Yeah, but we're talking about in the United States with like
gotcha.
the conflict. People obviously in the Civil War would be like, oh, I remember what, but those people aren't alive anymore. So, although it'll be really interesting in the future when people it's going to be like 2163 and they're going to be like, man, it's so bad in this country. Like, has it ever been this bad? Let's pull up the old podcast archives from Timcast IRL and figure it out.
We're just basically a time capsule for everything.
It's like you become a prophet like 100 years from now. It's like he was saying that the Civil War was coming and it finally came and there was a small band of Timcasters that were prepared.
But here's what would be funnier if it's like 100 years in the future and they're like, in his old age, the crackpot was still adamant the Civil War, which never did come, was coming. And it's a clip of me going, I'm telling you it's coming any day now. And it's just like this ratty old hut with like this.
Your beanie's got like 6 holes in it.
It's coming. And then someone walks in like, okay, Grandpa, time to take your medicine. And I'm like, oh, I like my medicine.
Your pudding.
Like, Grandpa, there's no more cameras around. They haven't been there for 40 years.
Well, how would they show it to the school children in the future?
It's like they took away your show when you said that joke about Pfizer.
Well, it's like the Timcast hologram or whatever it is in the future. Like whatever.
Like Tupac.
Yeah.
Oh man,
It's like Tim's still doing shows.
Wikipedia is saying
but he's
that
not around. It's actually just
what?
AI.
Wikipedia is saying James Madison had a population of over 100 slaves.
Yeah, he did own slaves.
Nice.
that's a lot.
Yeah.
Sure did.
That's a lot.
In Virginia.
I just got to say, like, if there's one thing that ever made me think it's not a good idea to be a public figure, is that they're going to turn you into an AI creepo robot in the future. They're going to they're going to create android bodies. They're going to create an AI of you from all of your social media. And then they're going to put it in the robot, and then there's going to be a weird facsimile of you walking around, and it's just so creepy.
Do you think it's gonna be weird, like if kids will basically be able to know exactly who their grandparents, great grandparents were?
Crazy,
like there's
right?
all these,
But it's not just that. It's that, like, when you think of your grandparents, you think of old people. And then you see these old photos of them when they were young. You're like, wow. What's going to happen now is, it's even happening right now. It's crazy to, like, looking at a celebrity today who's maybe like 50 years old and seeing them in a movie and then being like, 20 years ago I didn't watch their films, and going back and seeing them as a young person. It's like, this is with high definition footage and cell phones, it's becoming more and more ubiquitous. Here's where we're headed though. They're already talking about taking your Facebook and using all the information about you to create an AI that can simulate who you were, answer questions even about what you thought, what you felt. They can then put that into a robot body. And so your grandchildren, like your dad, and your 30-year-old grandchild is like, my grandpa passed away a few years ago, so we built a 24-year-old version, compiled his Facebook from when he was 24 to create his 24-year-old persona.
And here's a robot of him.
And here's a robot. And then all of a sudden this robot, it's not really you, there's no soul, but to other people, they see you going like, where am I? I was just in Harper's Ferry. What's going on? And it's like, grandfather, I'm your grandchild. And you're like, whoa. And then it's like there's weird robot versions of you, and it could be like they could take They could say, how old do you want your grandfather to be? Oh, let's do it 35. Then they grab your social media profile from 35 and younger, and they take all that data into an AI and say, well, let's make him 40. Okay, we'll grab 5 more years, throw it in the mix. That's how crazy it's going to be.
Oh, and I do have a fact check for you. Lizzo actually did play a little song on the flute.
Oh, she did? She didn't just toot it? I thought she tooted it and then handed it back.
Yeah, so she's wearing a different outfit in this one. She's wearing like a black shirt and black pants. And that's when she does twerk while she's playing this flute.
So she is a flautist.
We played the video of her twerking and then yelling, I just twerked.
No, it wasn't that. Yeah, so
we played the
wearing
video of her
something
doing
different.
it. They hand her the crystal flute. She toots it.
But there was another video of her.
Why do you keep saying toots it?
Was it in concert or
She
was
toots
it like
it.
no?
Wait,
Or was it at the National Archives?
It was at the National Archives.
Oh my god!
Yeah.
Oh, I see.
Yeah,
Not
yeah,
stage.
yeah,
So
yeah.
in the
I thought it was a
National
butt cheek joke
Archives,
you were making.
she's twerking and playing this historical flute, and I'm just grossed out beyond measure.
Yeah, I liken it to, it's not just an action figure. Action figures have value to people, but this is a historical artifact that she basically ripped out of the packaging, and
Yeah.
now it's no longer been the pristine crystal artifact. It's
This is like taking the Betsy Ross flag and doing a strip tease with it.
well, she played the flute. I don't like the stage performance thing because I think that was like the twerking stuff, but she actually twerked again at the thing.
Yeah, she twerked in the National
Okay, then
Archives.
you're right, I
Worked
agree.
in the
Playing
National
flute.
Archives. Classy.
So gross.
Classy woman.
Okay, what if like the lead? What if Anthony Kiedis went up there and played the flute? What do you think the reaction would have been?
I mean, my attitude is the same. I don't care. Like, I'm not a fan. I think
It's disrespectful.
that's just me, man.
Get some space.
You'll notice this too. For people who know me, I have a bunch of artifacts. I've got a Civil War rifle. It's an actual Union rifled musket. It's real.
Oh,
It's everything.
you're telling me you like art? You've showed me every sweet sword in here, and I love those things.
Yeah,
so.
but so across the room, I have a Union Civil. I bought an antique shop. I have a collection that I recently acquired of Life magazine going back. I have the first magazine, the first edition of Life magazine, officially that was published. It used to be, Life used to be. They reformatted it. It was purchased and they turned it into Life. And I went to a few antique stores. I found hundreds of them, and it's amazing to be able to read what people thought or were being told a month before D-Day. Because you know what they were saying? The U.S. has sent armaments to the U.K. as a defensive measure. Oh, really? Is that what they did? Well, now we know the truth. So
Yeah.
reading that perspective of what they actually thought at the time, why did they vote who they voted for? It's amazing. It's amazing. So I go to antique stores. I'm like, this is incredible. It's like preserving the ideas, the memories, and the context of the past. Mm-hmm. For me, to see, like, if somebody tore a page out of an old book from the 1800s to use as a Kleenex, I'd be pissed off.
Yeah.
If somebody was using an old book from the 1800s as a window stopper, I'd be pissed off. Mm-hmm. To see anybody, be handed a flute that's never been played before, owned by the 4th president, and be like, twerk with it, baby! Even if it was some other rock star, some other famous person, or Kenny G, whoever, I'd be like, dude, it's like watching, it's worse than someone tearing open, an original Star Wars action figure. Like, that's just some cultural item. This is actually in the presidential archives as the history of this country.
Yeah, it's our collective culture too.
But outside, this flute doesn't have anything with our culture. We didn't even know about it.
That's not what I'm talking about.
Okay, but she played the flute. If she just played the flute and didn't twerk, and maybe
Still
she
bad.
would. But a flute's meant to be played, right?
So, no. I have a rifled musket that's never been fired before. If someone were to fire that, it would ruin it. It'd be ruined. No one's ever even dry fired this. It came out of an armory. It was produced for the Union. It was never used, never given to anyone. Eventually, someone went in and they just dispersed these. People started collecting these items and they were handed off. And this one found its way to an antique shop, and it's got the certification and all that jazz. No one's ever dry fired it. That would alter it. Right now, if you want to see, to the best of our understanding, what this thing looked like and how it responded before it's even been fired once, it's here. If someone were to load it and fire it, now it's got damage to it. Now it's got residue placed in it, and it's not even from the same era. It's just like, dude, I think I don't know, man. That's just me. That's just me. That's
You're
who I
right.
am.
I mean, that's what's happening with all the founding fathers, is that the reverence that we had for them is now being not only called into question, but thrown right into the garbage. So I think you're right that it is kind of a meme for what's actually happening across our culture.
I just really love like mementos and relics and curios and things like that. whenever I would cover a news story, I would always take a piece of that story back with me. So I have, I don't know where they are, but I had fragments of the Lennon statue. They were just bits on the ground of marble that were from the shattered ground. And I had like 2 little pieces. I think they're gone. I don't know where they are. But I have police tape from when the 2 officers were executed by that black nationalist in Brooklyn. Mm-hmm. It happened on the street where I lived. So I walked outside my house and I saw the police tape ripped from when they closed it off 10 feet from my house. So I went up and I took a piece of it and I said, this is from that moment. I have the newspaper from when Darren Wilson was acquitted, leading to the riots in Ferguson. I have an armband from the Thai protests. I collect these things because they're representations of the thing that happened of a piece of history. So that's just me.
I collected riot munitions.
Yeah, I've got from France. I've got cool shells. I keep all those things. They're proof that something happened. That's not a story. It's this thing exists because of this moment in history.
But I agree. I agree exactly what you said with the rifle, and I agree with those things that are part of a moment in time. I just don't think that the flute what does the flute represent? Like, what moment in time does the flute represent? It was probably just a gift, and it's like, here you go, Mr. President, and he never played it.
Exactly, that's right.
But you know, somebody blowing air into a flute, I don't think is I think it's very different than taking a rifle that's as pristine as that one and shooting around. I understand what you're saying, and I get that, and I agree with that.
There was once a flute that had never been played. It no longer exists. It's gone. And I think that's a bad thing.
But I don't think it was destroyed. There's nothing. The flute wasn't hurt.
The idea of the pristine crystal flute has been destroyed. Yes, it's gone. Such an item no longer exists. There is no longer an unplayed flute that was owned by James Madison. Now there is a flute that was played by Lizzo, who twerked with it.
Okay, and again, if she didn't twerk, if she just went in and played it like a normal person, or like the Yo-Yo Ma equivalent of a flautist.
I assume you just can't understand, and I mean
no, I do understand.
I'm saying ideas exist. An object exists. What is the object? It is defined as an unplayed crystal flute owned by the 4th president of the United States. That is gone now. Now what remains is a crystal flute that was played by Lizzo on stage, who twerked, that was previously owned by James Madison. It was taken from the Library of Congress and given to her on stage, where she joked about twerking with it, and it's just like, there is no longer an unplayed flute. You know what I mean? That it's gone.
Right.
There you go. All right, let's read some more. Daniel Turnka says, how about we make a movie parodying the life of Olivia Wilde while she's satirizing the life of Jordan Peterson? Was it a satire where she was making a comedy about Jordan Peterson? Is that what it was?
It's hard for me to tell these
Wasn't
days.
it really bad?
Like sometimes I watch
it was
movies
like
now
the
and
number
can't
one
tell.
movie this last weekend. So.
It was? I heard it got panned by the left.
It wasn't like super critically acclaimed. I think it has like a 60 something on Metacritic. But it was the number one movie.
I watched the movies with the
like
lowest critic rating, but the highest disparity between what the critics think
Dave
and what
Chappelle.
the audience thinks.
But she doesn't have any moral high ground to stand on anyway. I mean, you know, with the whole thing with leaving Jason Sudeikis for Harry Styles, you know, like that whole thing. So screw what she thinks, honestly.
All right, Cornelius Buttknuckle says Nick Rekieta hit the nail on the head when he pointed out that the She-Hulk show is exactly what you'd expect from a Marvel show if it was written by a bunch of early to mid-30s wine moms. Yes.
Yeah, but they're
now
not
I really
moms.
have to see it.
So there was a story that the Pop Culture Crisis crew was talking about. Who was it from Charlie's Angels? Someone.
Oh yeah, we just talked about that today.
Yeah, they were.
Elizabeth Banks.
She regretted that it was marketed to only towards girls or whatever. And I just gotta wonder about this. Do women feel inspired or powerful watching women fight, hunt, box, kill, maim, and things like that? Like on average, I know some women do, but I'm wondering, like, Charlie's Angels bombed. My understanding is
It did.
and that's what she was saying. Like, well, they only market it towards girls, but didn't she say something like it's for girls, don't watch it or whatever?
She literally said, if you're a white male, don't watch my movie. It isn't for you. And then she turned around and said, why aren't white men watching my movie? They're all just sexist.
But I'm wondering if there's a thing where it's like men on average are like, I like the adventure and the conflict, and women on average are like, I like the social interactions and the personal development.
Also, aren't those characteristics that you're describing what would also describe toxic masculinity?
Well, I suppose to a certain degree, but it depends. If it's like a firefighter, saving a bag of puppies, that's not toxic masculinity. Toxic masculinity would be
No,
like,
he mansplains to the puppies as he's bringing them down.
Yeah. But I'm just saying, like, I feel like what they're doing is they're saying, they're like, we should make movies for women. So let's take male tropes and make it women. But now it's like, do women like watching women box other women?
No.
Guys would.
Guys would. That's exactly the problem. They're trying to make their female characters into second-rate men.
It's like if The Notebook, you just flip the two roles around.
Yeah.
Ryan Gosling is like sitting at home waiting.
Oh, right.
But the Notebook goes to war. And
the first two Charlie's Angels movies made money. They were hits, and I actually saw both of those movies in the theater.
Right, but that was like Foxy Boxing, basically.
No, I mean they were fun, kind of goofy movies, and Drew Barrymore, and but this new one I had no interest in watching because I don't like Kristen Stewart. It's like I didn't want to watch her for 2 hours. And an Elizabeth Banks movie. I probably didn't see it because she directed it.
You're not allowed really to say that because you're a man.
I mean, yeah,
and you're critiquing a movie with women in it, and that's a mansplain. So,
Not allowed.
I just anytime that it's something about like new wave feminism, I just go, got it.
But the Charlie's Angels movies were fun, though.
There's no winning here.
No, there's not.
No, I agree that the original Charlie's Angels
They
movies,
were great.
They were and it's not that the women were like there was an inherent like, I guess, feminine that they were still embodying, which I think women like to see. Like they were being women in stilettos and like kicking the crap out of dudes.
And it was the tone of the movies. It was actiony, but it was like a little over the top and corny and funny.
Yeah, it was self-aware.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, this new one was like very serious, wasn't it?
Yeah, it's like She-Hulk explaining, to He-Hulk.
Oh man, what? I'm watching Better Call Saul. It is one of the most satisfying shows I've ever watched. I was complaining about Star Wars recently, how it's like Obi-Wan Kenobi walks out of the ship in Revenge of the Sith, and he's like, Anakin, in the past 2 hours, I've gone from loving you to wanting to kill you. And it's just like, why? Like, why did Anakin go from like, we have to stop Palpatine as a Sith to now I'm his servant? And then like,
what have I done?
I know, just like that, all of a sudden, I was really annoyed because I was like, the shift from him being a Jedi to him being Darth Vader was just like a coin flipped. Because he's literally like, Master Windu, Palpatine's the Sith Lord, we must stop him. And he's like, okay, wait here. And he goes, no, I'm coming with. And then all of a sudden, he regrets what he did. What have I done? I'll be evil and murder kids. I was just like, what? But Better Call Saul. Better Call Saul's transition from Jimmy McGill into Saul Goodman.
Yeah, you can see it.
It's so well done.
Yeah.
What's really, really impressive about it, I'm sure many people have already seen it because I'm on season 5 right now. What's so well done is the dynamic between Jimmy and Kim, who is like his significant other, for those who don't know. I see these interactions where he's becoming more con artisty and more like Saul, but then his interaction with Kim is very like well written and normal. Mm-hmm. Like when she gets upset with him, he apologizes because they're actually in a relationship, and he's like, okay, I'm sorry, like, we'll talk about it. But you can see they're still being pulled apart. Whereas like with Star Wars, it's like, you're my brother, Anakin, now die. Like, what? Yeah,
that's what happened to Hollywood.
So I mean, what you're saying is it was poorly written. Is that?
I'm just saying, Better Call Saul. I'm just continually impressed with it. Look, when I complain about writing and stuff, Better Call Saul is better than I could possibly ever imagine. The Howard Hamlin, the lawyer from the other company, he's such a well-rounded character. It's like he comes off as smarmy sometimes, but then he gets emotional and like you understand who he is as a character. It's an amazing show. I'm really impressed. I think it's better.
Did you watch Mad Men?
No. Is that also good? Yeah. I'll check it out.
You like characters.
Well, I watched Breaking Bad. I thought it was pretty good.
I like cigarettes.
Better Call Saul's better.
That's a great show.
Let's read one more. It's very important. Scott Jeffer says, what's y'all thoughts on Deadpool 3 and the few teasers? I'm very excited for it. It's going to be silly fun. Ryan Reynolds is great. And the teasers they did, bringing back Hugh Jackman, he's going to be Wolverine. It's going to be funny, and I'm going to have a fun time. So that's cool.
Yeah, they released a new teaser today. If you saw it, yeah,
where they're sitting together and it plays Jitterbug.
Mm-hmm.
It was good. The first one where he's like, "I have nothing. I got nothing. Hey, Hugh," and then he walks past him eating an apple. Hey, and he's like, "You want to play Wolverine again?" He goes, Yeah, sure, Ryan. And that's it. And he walks up the stairs. That was really, really good.
I smuggled a bunch of beers into the theater when I saw it with my mom, the original Deadpool. And she's like, what are you doing? There's 8 beers. Why would you bring 8 beers into the theater? I was like, Mom, you don't understand what this movie is going to be. You're going to be. And she literally is tapping me on the shoulder like, give me another one. I'm like,
I need a beer.
Yeah, you're drinking all the beers now.
Stop,
See?
Mom.
So,
all right, everybody, if you haven't
already,
already, smash that like button. Would you kindly smash that like button?
She-Hulk
Subscribe.
smash.
She-Hulk smash. Subscribe to this channel, share the show with your friends, and become a member at timcast.com. We're going to have a members-only uncensored show coming up for you at 11 p.m. You don't want to miss it. Follow the show at Timcast IRL. You can follow me at Timcast. Richie, do you want to shout anything out?
You can shout out my own name, Richie McGinniss, RICHIE MCGINNISS.
And where people could find you.
That's right there. Just type that in. Anything. It's all up there.
Refugee?
Also my Substack.
Again,
that
Florida,
in too.
you know, stay safe, my friends, and beyond Florida too. You can find me at Don't Walk Run on Twitter, and you can find me at Don't Walk Run Productions on YouTube. And again, thanks to everyone for having me, and nice seeing you again, Richie.
It's great seeing this refugee from Florida.
Are you still stuck here? Because I don't think they're reopening the airports.
Yeah.
No, and trains too. They're like, you know.
Stick around, man.
Okay,
We'll get you on the mini ramp. We'll film. It'll be fun.
I got some good. I got a fun little video of Richie skating. So maybe I'll
Yeah, he did
maybe
a
I'll post
360.
it later
If it doesn't count as a 360.
if I get a certain amount of new followers on
There you
Twitter.
go.
No, I'm kidding. All right, but thank you guys for having me, and I love you all, especially Luke and his.
Milkers.
Yeah, I do like that. Can I squeeze him real quick before?
Hey, this is a family-friendly show
sorry.
here, you vagrant.
I can't
You stay
motorboat?
away
No
from
motorboat?
me.
They
First
got
of all,
progressively bigger. It's hilarious.
It kept getting perkier and perkier as the episode went
He's
on.
like, I'm not going to do it. And I don't want to do that thing. I don't want to be distracting.
Hey guys, it's a pleasure being a part of the Luke cast cans. The Bill Gates moobs are back. Eat your heart out, Libby Evans. The Bazunkas are here. Have no fear. LukeMilkers.com, backed by popular demand. Thank you so much for having me. LukeMilkers.com. That's a website. It's official. It's real. See you there. Thanks so much for having me.
I am constantly upstaged by Luke every single
Damn
night.
right.
It gets worse. I can't stand it. Just kidding. It's good times. I do have to say that I just saw an Instagram video from our good pal Adam Johnson, and he is recreating that meme of Florida man out there in the storm with that American flag and a beer in one hand. And I just stay safe down there, y'all. That's crazy times. You guys can follow me on twitterandminds.com at SarahPatchLids, as well as SarahPatchLids.me.
Worth the follow.
We will see you all
Always.
over at timcast.com. Thanks for hanging out.
Bye, guys.